Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 4th, 2025 meeting of the Orangetown Plan and Zoning Commission. I am Commissioner Ozzie Parenti, and with us this evening,
Tom Tarenti. Paul Kaplan.
Jenny Bowser, Recording Secretary.
Bonnie Syatt.
Kevin Cornell.
Judy Smith.
okay, we're going to be missing our zoning enforcement officer this evening. He's out sick, so we'll have to plod along without him. So, first item on our agenda is a review of the minutes from the February 4, 2025 meeting. I have a few things, Jenny.
Okay.
Under old business,
Okay.
Commissioner Cornell asked if Stapa Vineyard, is it Scapa or?
SK.
SK, isn't it? Okay, just,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
and then,
I thought it was STP.
I thought I checked it, but.
Hang on.
I thought it was SK, but I'm,
I think it's STE though, STE, right?
I think
STA?
it
Okay.
I stand corrected.
is. Okay.
Shows you how often we go.
I thought, I would have bet the,
Voice from the back of the room.
I would have bet the ranch on a K over there, but fine, that's good. Okay, and then in the paragraph entitled Report of the Zoning Enforcement Officer,
Okay.
3 lines down, begins Town Attorney Marino for the special permits to be revoked from the land records. I would say revoked and recorded on the land records.
Recorded. Okay, noted.
All right. And then 4 lines down from that, it says, it was decided to hold a public hearing on March 4th concerning the moratorium for public input. I think it was actually not the moratorium. I mean, tonight, we're not going to be talking about the moratorium. We've already done that. It's about regulations, concerning regulations for smoke shops, tobacco stores, and vape shops. And I would take out the reference to the moratorium for public input. I think the only other thing I had was in, on the second page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs up from the bottom.
Discussion ensued?
Yes, discussion ensued within the commission regarding variances in non-conforming lots. It was decided that due to the variances, this non-conforming lot is now, I would say this formerly non-conforming lot is now conforming.
Okay, noted.
That's all I had. Anybody else? Okay. Then, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
It's been, we have a motion to approve. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain as.
And Commissioner Tarenti abstains. Okay. All right, next item on our agenda is old business. Does anyone have anything they wish to bring up under that topic? How about under new business? Oh, under new business, anything other than BFJ's presentation?
No.
No? Okay, then, the rest of our discussion of new business is devoted tonight to BFJ planning to review draft POCD chapters and public survey results. You want to join us at the table here?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yep, it's on.
Oh, it's on. Okay,
you
great,
gotta
terrific. And you push that one.
Yep, thank you. There we go.
Got enough room there?
I think everybody's got a hard copy of this.
Yeah.
So I thought I would just,
Why don't you just introduce yourselves?
yeah,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
For everybody in the room.
Again, Frank Fish from BFJ, and I'm the principal working on this, and this is it.
Suzanne Goldberg, I'm the project manager with BFJ Planning.
I'll just start then with we've got an agenda, and on the, I should explain what you have. You have in front of you, you've got an agenda, and on the back of the agenda is the timeline, which I'll go over in a minute. And then you've got different, I know we've sent these all to you, but I hope Jack has, everything's been
Everything's been
transmitted.
forwarded.
Yeah,
But you've got a hard copy now, of all the chapters,
okay,
except one. And we should have that, we hope to have it to you this Friday, and that's economic development. So, the economic development chapter will be coming to you, we hope Friday. And, but other than that, all the chapters are now in place. As you know, we don't want to do the final chapter, the future land use chapter, and then, the key recommendations, until after the workshop. So you've got everything but economic development, which we'll get to you either Friday or Monday. And
okay,
then, what we are hoping on all these chapters is that if we could get, preliminary, any major comments tonight, but any minor comments maybe through Jack, and we're gonna suggest by perhaps next Wednesday, because we'd like to get everything up on the website a few weeks, before the workshop, so everybody, people looking at the website have a chance to read the chapters. So that's kind of the key thing there. So I thought what we could do tonight, I could go through the timeline. Suzanne's gonna go through the survey results, which are interesting to us. You've got a hard copy of them here, of all those survey results, and then maybe we could discuss the workshop.
sure.
And then finally get all your, any comments on the chapters, and we'll be able to finish up. But key thing for me is I know this is a little, I need glasses to read it, but on the back of, on the back of the agenda is the timeline, which you've seen before.
Yeah,
And I don't think I have to go over, basically, the chapters are done, but the major thing on this is that it's that second, you see the public workshops, that second orange one with the date, April 2nd. So under April, that square orange is the workshop coming up. So that's kind of, and I think you all have a handout on the workshop. And we've given you extra copies.
Yes, Suzanne gave them to me.
Yeah, great.
So we can post them places.
Yeah, we're hoping the workshop, we'll talk about that a little bit.
you're referring to the
The flyer, yeah.
Just the
advertising.
flyer,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
We're hoping the flyer can be distributed around town and also on any online, online. So that workshop is kind of, an important workshop for us, the second workshop, because it tests out, we'll be able to test out the ideas a little bit in the chapter. And what we thought is that workshop would be, sort of roundtable discussions, and we'd have a resource person at each of the tables. For instance, the man who was the prime author of Transportation, Mark Frecker, would be here. The prime author of Economic Development, Thomas Madden, would be at the workshop. Of course, Suzanne and I will be at the workshop, and one other person from our office will also be there. And we hope Jack, so we hope each of our team would sit at a round table, and maybe the commission members could sit at a table. We view this one as, yes, there's a presentation, but the important part of it is, after maybe a little coffee break, that people could sit at round tables and have a discussion of the items. And if, for instance, all of the tables would be able to discuss the whole plan and all of these chapters, but if someone's interested, say, in transportation, we'll have a resource person. Our transportation planner would be at that table. And if someone's interested in economic development, Thomas Madden would be at that table. So we'll have a resource person from our firm. And then we thought it would be great, too, if you could sort of sit at whatever round table you want to sit at.
Right.
And that would give us sort of two resource people at each table. And that what we usually do is ask for a volunteer at that table, maybe at the very end, to summarize in, hopefully 2 or 3 minutes. We might have, say, 5, depends on how many people come. Maybe 4 or 5 tables, depending on how many people are there. We could also easily do 6 or 7 tables, but I think 4 or 5 to start with. And so that's the idea of the workshop.
Okay.
So so basically we are where we had expected to be. That is, here, you can see the red dot below in March, March 4th, to go over with you all of the chapters tonight, then get the chapters, once we've made any changes, get them up online, maybe next week. And that gives people about 3 weeks or so. They can see everything online. And then
Right.
when they come to the workshop, they'll be able to speak to it. And we will summarize it in our presentation. We'll summarize each chapter, so people are not speaking cold. They'll see it, and those who care to read it all online, it'll be online.
Okay.
So our hope is, as you know, after the workshop, to meet with you again, maybe the end of April or early May. We need to, just whatever your regular meeting is.
Yeah.
And then, at your regular meeting, get any final comments from you from the workshop. In other words, you'll hear things at the workshop. You may feel, hey, something has to be changed, or something should be added onto or deleted. We can do all those changes with you on that meeting, which I should know the time of that, but your
Oh,
May.
absolutely.
First
your
Tuesday?
First,
Usually it's the first and third
first,
Tuesdays.
yeah, maybe the first
So-
Tuesday in May.
So, yeah,
We'd
we're
aim
looking
for that.
at- So that's either the 6th or the 20th.
So May 6th.
May 6th would be
I
good.
believe so.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. You can follow up with Jack just to make sure
Absolutely.
that works for you.
Yeah, May 6th would be great. So May 6th, Orange. And the purpose of that is really get all your comments, and then what we would do and have a discussion with you, and then we would produce a final document for purposes, I shouldn't say final, it'd be a draft plan altogether. That's
Okay.
one plan for the public hearing.
Right.
Now, in addition to the public hearing, which we hope would be in June before school gets out, that's, our aim is to, not do the hearing over the summer because you could get criticized. Just, I've seen hearings done over the summer, it's just nice to get it in before school gets out and people go on vacation.
Right.
And that gives us also, it uses the summer nicely because by Connecticut statute, you need to give the regional planning agency 65 days to comment on it. And you also need to give your legislative body, which I presume is the selectmen,
Yeah.
you need to give them the 65 days to review it. So we give them that time, they can take the whole summer.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that way, everybody's got plenty of time. And then, when you get all the comments back, you would be able to make any changes based on those comments from the regional planning agency. By the way, these comments, you are the ultimate authority on the P and Z, that is, you adopt it, so everyone always asks me, what if the regional planning agency has a comment? Well, you may or may not take it. It's up to you. It's up to you. And and again, that'll be your decision. And once you do that, then we can make any final changes before adoption. And what we're hoping, as you can tell in September, is to have a document ready for your adoption. Or adoption, and there might be a last-minute change. I've seen
Right.
that come about.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just learned something, and I should ask you all, because I think the first selectman's here too. The selectmen are your legislative body, right? In Newtown, we just had our plan for Newtown adopted, except I got delayed 1 month because Newtown's attorney said, well, wait a minute, the selectmen in this town are not the legislative body. I said, what? He said, no, we have a legislative body. And that was unusual to me. But I presume your selectmen here are your legislative body. That's for.
We don't have any other bodies.
You don't have any other bodies, right, good.
Got a half a dozen bodies there, but
All right, the selectmen,
He's gonna,
Orange, the selectmen are the legislative body. In Bethany, they do it by town meeting, different
Okay.
charters.
yeah, good, okay, question, thank you. So that's it, so they, both the selectmen and regional planning agency have over the summer to give you any comments. And then you'd be, then you'd be ready, we hope, in September to adopt.
okay.
So that's where,
So-
so,
Between now and the April 2nd meeting, the public workshop, is there any reason why you need to get together with us? Or will you get together with us at the next
I think what we.
regular meeting, or do we need a special meeting?
What we think is, after the, well, later this evening, we can go over the workshop in more detail, but we thought we're okay.
Okay,
Don't need to get together again before the workshop, provided we have your comments. I was gonna say, either tonight or give yourself more time. I know you've all had this only, had some chapters for 2 weeks, other chapters for a week. And maybe give yourselves through next Wednesday or something, get any final comments to Jack. And by the way, these are final comments only on the draft chapters, so.
right, but you want to have something in semi-finished form
Yeah, our key
to
is that.
present at the,
To present
At the
April
workshop,
2nd, yeah.
yeah.
Our key with this is, as I said earlier, we want you to see everything before anything goes
Right.
online.
I mean,
So, yeah.
just speaking for me, I'm happy to go through them tonight.
Yeah, great.
and- But I feel like I need to
Spend more.
spend a little more time on my own with
No, no,
with
that's
each
fine.
chapter.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
that's
what,
fine.
then what we would do is, funnel our comments to Jack,
Yeah,
get them to you.
Exactly.
right, that's right.
All
Yep.
right.
Yeah,
But I guess, what I'm saying is, we could conceivably do a special meeting if we had to, sometime between now and the
oh,
public
yeah, if you
workshop.
wanted to do that, you can.
Or you could meet
Yeah.
with us at the next regularly scheduled
Meeting.
meeting, which is,
right,
tonight is the
Which
3rd, 10th,
is-
17th, March
be away.
17th,
Yeah, I'm away, but
I can't
18th.
can you do that? Yeah,
18th.
18th.
18th. Yeah. If that's necessary, yeah,
I mean,
we could do that. yeah.
Probably should hold some time open on our agenda
Okay,
Yes, okay.
put a placeholder in.
for,
Wait for the 18th.
18th, yeah, March
for
18th.
BFJ.
Oh, maybe wrong. Sorry.
It's okay.
March 18th, yeah.
Yeah,
You
but it
go
really would be a
outside.
good idea if we all reviewed on our own,
Yes, okay. Yeah.
you know.
Suzanne will come to that meeting. I'm going to be somewhere in Italy, so
Isn't that
Okay.
great?
yeah. So, but,
All right,
yeah,
that's fine.
that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So with that, which is sort of the timeline, big picture, I thought it'd be good if Suzanne, our item 2 is just the survey results, if Suzanne could just highlight the survey results. You've all got should have a hard copy of it, which I think I have somewhere here. Yeah.
This one, yeah.
I got it.
Great, thanks, Frank. So in addition to the public workshops, which Frank mentioned, another key element of our community engagement strategy was creating an online survey that anyone could respond to, and we were able to advertise this through different social media outlets, news outlets. It was on the website, the Milford Orange Times, Orange Live, Orangetown News all posted about it, and really the point of this was to help us understand the priorities, maybe people who weren't able to come to the first workshop or aren't on the commission, to talk about what they viewed for the plan's vision. And we had around 228 responses, and everyone responded to 16 multiple choice questions, and these were aimed at rating and ranking, so we wanted to make sure that they were easy to tabulate. That's typically more statistically significant than open-ended questions in terms of finding the main themes. So of the respondents, about 76% were Orange residents, and then 5% work in Orange, and 18% are both residents and work in Orange. Most of the respondents had long-term ties to Orange. Over 50% have lived in the town for more than 20 years. And the other other respondents were evenly distributed amongst those who had lived in the town between 2 and 15 years mostly, and only 5% of respondents had lived in Orange for less than 2 years. So generally, people who had long-term ties to Orange were the ones who responded. In terms of key takeaways, I can just name a few, and then if we want to have a discussion, if anything jumped out to you, if you had any questions. Some of the top strengths were schools, quality of life, parks and open space. Some of the concerns were affordability, taxes, and public services. Approximately 61% of residents said that they plan to stay in Orange. They see themselves living here in 10 years. And of the top priorities for the next 5 years, the highest priority was preserving residential neighborhoods. Some other priorities, more moderate, were expanding senior housing options, and then lower priority was expanding housing options at a mix of price points. And we really found that most respondents believed that Orange has the right amount and mix of different housing types. But like mentioned before, some respondents saw a need for more senior housing or affordable or workforce housing. In terms of concerns with potential new development, the top concerns were school capacity, infrastructure limitations, meaning water and sewer, and parking and traffic. Open space was seen as a big priority for many respondents, and 47% view converting private open space into dedicated open space owned by the town or land trust as one of their high priorities. In terms of creating a healthier, greener environment, or greener community, there was strong support for, like I said, expanding open space, creating a more pedestrian and bike-friendly environment, and also protecting drinking water. For economic development, the most popular strategy to support economic development in Orange was supporting local entrepreneurship and small businesses specifically. And in terms of what new businesses people would like to see in town, people emphasize cafes, bakeries, coffee shops, restaurants, so those types of food services. And lastly, for transportation, approximately 63% of respondents said that they support the creation of sidewalks on both sides of Route 1, which we'll talk about a little bit later as we talk about the transportation chapter. And then around 68% of respondents said that they feel uncomfortable walking, and largely due to inadequate sidewalks. And over half of respondents said that they experience traffic or congestion regularly, encounter speeding, and issues with pedestrian and bike safety.
So speeding's mostly awesome.
Yeah.
Not anymore, I'm too afraid.
So those are the main takeaways. but-
That's an overview. I was
Yeah.
just gonna say the overview, and then, by the way, what we like about this program that we use is it just makes charts and graphs for you, and so you can see all of these as you go through this. So I think it's kind of, we thought we could show these results in a summary form, maybe first put them up online, get them all online, but then summarize them at the workshop. And we'll emphasize that this is not as you know, we've mentioned before, it's not a scientific survey in the sense that those who chose to answered it. So that's a sort of self-selected, group. So it's those who did, we got quite a few, we got a couple of hundred of these, so we've got a good response. And it's a response in time, and then the other responses that we would rely on is the workshop.
Right.
That gets us ready for the public hearing, so that, I've mentioned before, our hope is that by doing these workshops, by getting the survey out, getting everything up online, that there'll be relatively few people that come, and hopefully I always hope for no one that comes that says, I never heard of this,
Right.
and
I
so,
don't think that'll happen.
yeah, by the time we get to the public hearing, everyone should have had the opportunity to read everything.
So how would you gauge our town's participation as compared to similar?
Good. I think it's a good participation. We got in one that we're doing right now, Brookfield, we have a little bit of where I find if there's something that's controversial, we get a higher response rate. And in Brookfield, I don't want to say well, won't say it's controversial, but people do feel a little bit more strongly in Brookfield because in the last, they've had a lot of applications pre-COVID, which went through the approvals process for multifamily housing on federal, it's Route 7, north of Danbury, the Federal Road.
Right.
And it's, it's got a lot of traffic on it, and suddenly, post-COVID, the developers, they had their approvals and they built. So all of a sudden, they feel that, they're seeing something now visibly, and there's a
Right.
lot of multifamily housing, so it's a little bit more of a concern up there. So it turned out more people for the survey, but I would say by maybe 100 people, more than we got here. What indicates to me that a lot of people are pretty, this survey indicates a lot of people are pretty happy with the way things are here. So I don't see any, you would know this better, I don't see any particular striking controversial issue. So I think we've got a good turnout, we're happy with it, but it's not a huge one.
Right.
And a huge one usually would be where there's some,
Where there's an axe to grind.
yeah, there's an axe to grind, or there's some new development, there's something that's really
Yeah.
controversial, pressing issue.
Okay.
And, that type of thing, and I don't think, so I think this indicates to me that, so far, we haven't seen that. This doesn't indicate that. So it indicates
Yeah.
pretty, people are pretty,
I mean,
I
I
don't
don't know
see-
if anybody else,
yeah,
I'm not surprised to see these results.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
So that's the survey, and then I've kind of covered the workshop a little bit, but I'm hoping, so if you feel, by the way, you need that intervening meeting, Suzanne can attend, get any final comments you have, because we'd like to get all these chapters up. By the way, if you feel ahead of that, if you feel like next week, oh, we're safe putting up chapters 1 and 2, or something like that, land use, demographics is not a very controversial chapter. So if we can put a couple up first, that'd be great, and then come to your meeting, Suzanne can pick up any final comments on the other chapters. Let's see how we do tonight, though, maybe we can go through them
Sure.
one at a time.
So, I mean, I went through this once quickly, but really didn't sit down to compare it to the existing plan of conservation and development.
Yes, yeah.
It's a lot of it, I assume, is the same language, or not?
We've covered all of what, it's Glenn, right? All of what Glenn covered, because Glenn's an old professional acquaintance of mine, and we've covered all that Glenn covered, I
Yeah.
believe. And we've added some detail to certain chapters, like transportation. And there's changes because, I mean, the biggest, easiest one for everybody the public will understand is, Glenn had a whole section on the new train station. Well, we've
Yeah.
taken all that out, because that's not gonna happen. Glenn also had a road proposal,
Which also,
but
yeah.
you got a multifamily building there now,
Yeah.
so that's not gonna happen either.
Right.
So we've made changes like that.
Okay.
And gone into a little bit more detail on some of these areas, but it's the goals and objectives, we've tried to pick up quite a bit from what Glenn had, and then we would refine them based on the survey a little bit.
Okay,
So
Yep.
some of the sort of best practices have been updated too, just in terms of sustainability and those, sort of since 10 years ago, we have some ideas of things that could be implemented. Just since then have become best practices.
all right.
So we can go, maybe we should go through it, starting with,
This is the cover.
yeah, by the way, that, although this is just the, people say this is the cover and the title page, I find the title page is very, very important, because it is so important that we have not misspelled someone's name, or that we got everything correctly here, like the first selectman, that, everything is in order, and all of your names.
Is he always
Jack, Jenny.
Is he always Z-I-O-L-I? No, I'm only kidding.
All right, we got it, ZEOLI.
It's good.
It's good, it looks good.
All right, it's good. All right, okay. So although sometimes you think, oh, we just breeze by these, I just want to make sure that, that's important. And then
Yeah.
chapter 1, go ahead, I'm gonna let you,
Sure.
Suzanne.
And I just wanted to know, before starting, that this is just draft format, so this is in Word right now. When we give you a final draft, it'll be in InDesign, so in this format, this type, and the charts will look more uniform. There'll be more images. It'll be much more cohesive. So right now, we're just focusing on content. So the first chapter is really just an introduction. It talks about sort of the Connecticut general statutes, the planning process, and lists some of the goals from the previous plan of conservation and development to show we're not starting from scratch here. The vision, we have a placeholder for now. We like to wait until we have all the survey results and more feedback from the workshop, just to ensure that the vision takes into account all of the feedback and public engagement we've received. The plan is organized into chapters. Each chapter covers a different topic area, begins with an overview of the existing conditions and challenges and opportunities, and then is followed by recommendations. And we also reference some of the existing state and regional plans. The POCD is supposed to align with the state plan of conservation and development, as well as the regional one, so the South Central Regional Council of Governments. So we want to just outline what those main goals are to ensure alignment. And that's the first chapter of the introduction.
When later on, you are referencing the different POCDs that we're supposed to conform with, but it's not ours. It's sometimes difficult in your language to pull out, unless you read very carefully, that this isn't what we want. This is what we are required to do.
Okay.
All right, or this is what we're, so in that, when you read it, you're assuming that most of this work is ours and what we believe should happen to the town of Orange. And I think knowing that there are other people who have a voice that we're supposed to take in, and that those are their thoughts, is helpful.
Yes, but we've seen some examples here in Connecticut. The one that strikes me, and this was some time ago, this was Danbury felt strongly that the state's plan was wrong for the old Union Carbide site. It was after the big Union Carbide abandoned the site, didn't abandon the site, left the site. The state had envisioned more of an open space designation, which they put down. And Danbury objected and said, these buildings are sound, and by the way, they have now been, I don't know if you've driven by or you know the history of it, they have now been converted to residential. It's called the Reserve at Danbury. And that's an active site. And Danbury went to the state and objected and said, look, this is very important for our tax base. Your state plan is not in accordance with ours. We want it changed. And the state changed it. The state changed it. So it is a little bit of a back and forth. I don't see anything here, though, I'll be honest. I think you already conform to the state plan. And I think we say that here. And one of the major reasons is the state plan. So I had the opportunity when I was only maybe 24, 25. My first planning job ever was for the Capital Region Planning Agency in Hartford, and I got a chance to hear Horace Brown, who developed the state plan. And our local chapter here of the American Planning Association, Horace died a year ago and gave me a huge write-up on his influence. And he always said that the state plan was about water and sewer, infrastructure, and the Connecticut, and he called it this way, the Connecticut Yankee view of fiscal prudence. And that is that where you have sewer, and most of the cities do, you should have significant density. Because those units can pay for that sewage treatment plant and can pay for infrastructure. Where you're not gonna have it, you should have lower densities that work well on septics. And that, I think, is the kind of wisdom that's proven out. To me, your zoning complies with that. And Brookfield, where we're working now, had one that didn't. It's an R7 zone, 7,000 square feet per single-family home. Problem is, it's on Candlewood Lake, and the soils of this particular area are not that great for septics. And so what's happened is, the septic effluent from that development is gradually polluting parts of Candlewood Lake. Not seriously enough, because Candlewood Lake is so big that it's not significant at this point, but they're gonna be faced, and they have a very big controversy on this, which is why people are turning out for, they're responding to our survey. And this one subdivision, there's a big, big push now to sewer the whole thing. And everybody's resisting in that subdivision, because guess who pays? So, you know, you don't face that here. Your plan, in my view, does conform to the state's plan of conservation and development. Now, having said that, they're revising the state plan of conservation and development. I think there's a draft of it before the General Assembly in this session. I don't know we're just tracking that and following it, but that's not in place right now. So the current plan, Kevin, I'm sorry, didn't mean to, but there's a give and take a little bit sometimes, but I think you're in conformance with it. I don't think your goals and objectives are that different.
If
I see what you're saying,
If
though.
I have a specific example, I'll just reach out.
Yeah.
That sounds
yeah,
great, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, happy to. So that's the introduction, vision, and goals. Any other questions or comments? It's a pretty straightforward chapter. I can do
Yeah, let's-
demographics, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, you could, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so the main, I guess the main point that for demographics is, that we wanted to know is, in terms of on page 6, we reference school enrollment in the town of Orange. And these numbers came from the census, but I just wanted to note that we reached out to the Amity School Regional High School. We wanted to make sure that we have the correct number of students enrolled, because we saw in the high school that there was a drop, pretty significant drop in the number of students enrolled. And so we just wanted to confirm that what we saw in the census was actually accurate in terms of the school's records. So we're waiting to hear back. They're getting the numbers together for us now. But I just wanted to note that this table here will be updated with more accurate information. We also reached out to the Orange Board of Education to make sure that their numbers match up with ours. So in any next iterations of this chapter, we'll have those verified for you.
And I'll just add to that, we sent all this to Jack and made sure that he was aware of this. What is a little bit expected, your kindergarten, elementary grades, all of them make sense to us. It's basically kind of stable. But the high school, if these are census numbers, we're not sure they're 100% correct. We're trying to see, if you can see the high school there, 9 to 12, it's showing in 2010 an enrollment of 1,081. Now, in 2020, it's showing an enrollment of 717. That's a big drop, and we're not sure. Now, the other thing we're not sure of is the private school percentage of that is significant. Well, that's significant. That's a significant number, 21.9%. I'm not, so we're checking with the school district. We want to make sure these are correct. Yeah, these are census, so we're trying to get, I think though that we have the school district's elementary.
Yeah, well,
These, yeah,
yeah,
so we'll double check all of these.
and we have, from the Board of Education in the facilities chapter is, some of their data too, so we'll make sure that's consistent across both. But just wanted to note that that's a little bit of a placeholder for now. We want to make sure we have the most accurate data possible in the census.
Yeah.
Sometimes, doesn't get that completely right in this case.
Yeah, in general, a more stable population, your school district, or even a slight decline, we're finding in a lot of Connecticut. It's not just Connecticut, it's actually throughout most of the country. And that's because of declining birth rates. Whereas 30 years ago, in, say, your single-family homes, you might have had, the average household might have been 4 or 5 people. Now it's more like 3 or 4. That makes a difference, because that's like one public school child less. So that has an overall effect, and that's been throughout school districts, really mostly throughout most of Connecticut. There's exceptions to that, particularly where you might have high immigration in, but I don't think you have that condition here. So we'll just check those, make sure. So that's demographics, yeah.
Any other questions or comments on this chapter?
No.
Maybe I'll just do land use and
Perfect.
zoning to do the rest.
Sounds good.
So, land use and zoning, by the way, this is not much different than Glenn had these land use patterns, and we've simply updated them a little bit. Your land use hasn't changed significantly. I mean, when you look at the map on page 3 of the land use section, yellow is basically your residential. I mean, it's basically the light yellow is single family. So if you take a look at the map, you're basically a single family town. What has changed a little bit is you do have some new multifamily, which we highlight in the housing chapter. But your basic, overall, the major category remains single family. And the second category really here is open space. And you can see the greens for open space. By the way, your community facilities, they're significant. Community facilities, which are in blue. And then the red is where you know it, you expect it. Red is the land use color for commercial. And then the purple is industrial. And that's basically in the Route 1 corridor.
Just a note on the data source for this. So the town of Orange doesn't have its own land use GIS data set. So we received this from the South Central Regional Council of Governments that has data on each of the towns. And we sent this to Jack to look over, but if there's anything that you find isn't 100% accurate, let us know, because this comes from the regional council. It's not updated maybe as often as you all update your own records.
On the border with Milford towards the Post Road, there's a 2-family zone. I'm not familiar with a 2-family zone we have in the
Oh,
town.
you're on a zone,
Oh, this is land use.
this is just land use.
So this,
So,
So wouldn't
This-
that mean there's 2-family houses there?
yes, where we indicate bright yellow, you're on the Milford border, the bright yellow.
Yeah,
We're in town, what's?
yeah, I live there, I just,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar.
it might be
Yeah.
an inaccuracy then with I'll make a note of that. We can spot check that. That's a good catch. And if there's
Yep.
anything else you see.
Yeah, that's what we're wondering.
Where,
Well, that-
Kevin, where are you talking about?
On the border of City of Milford on the south side.
You see,
Oh.
just look at the code, you see there's a
Yeah,
yellow,
2-family.
right.
Does that, where that is now, is that,
Is it a
And you're-
non-conforming use?
is it
Could-
single family in your,
Yeah, I would think.
you think it's just single family?
It's a couple blocks.
Yeah, no, and what I'm saying, this is how the town is zoned, but it doesn't mean, I mean, could that be a non-conforming use?
So this is
2
land,
blocks of
Big
houses.
space.
it's,
We can check that
Yeah, we'll
because
check.
this data is from Scrog.
Yeah.
And if this is inaccurate, we should let them
Where,
know.
where is that anyway?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'm
and
trying to see what street.
Yeah.
Also over here, there might be multifamily, further down by the Post Road and Smith Farm. And Smith Farm,
In Smith
like
Farm.
over here.
Right, can you put that on mine,
I
just,
think that's around
Right in
here.
here?
Yeah.
we'll check it.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, so this first map, page 3, is really just land use. So we'll check if there's any two families. If there's not two families in that area, now, you're just pointing out Smith Farm, there may be some two families there.
No, multifamily.
Multifamily,
Right.
all right, multi. Then we'll check that, yeah,
And if there's any inaccuracies, we can also let Scrog know too, so.
yeah. And we will say to people that this is a general land use map. We don't mean to go lot by lot here.
I don't know.
So we'll
I
check
don't
with
remember
Scott.
offhand.
Okay, yeah,
All right, so this was the Scrog map?
Yes,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. You do not have your own, no one's locally done this. It would take you a bit of time to get all of this down. But this is we'll label this as a generalized land use map. So again, the light yellow is basically single family, the brighter yellow is two family, and the tannish is multifamily.
Is that near
Most-
Peck Lane?
That's what I'm thinking, it's near Peck, which is all single family.
Well, past Trader Joe's, is that,
No, because it's not past the Post Road.
That's not, yeah, that's the other side of Post Road.
A couple
Yeah.
on Indian River.
Oh, yeah.
at the border.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Because of Creo's house, Maggie Zelinsky's house are both the multifamily.
all right?
Alright. We'll have to check that, and
Oh,
we'll reach
that's
out to
fine,
John.
that's
too,
the
maybe he'll know.
Anywhere that you have yellow.
Yeah, that bright yellow.
The bright
It
yellow.
looks like on the other side of Route 1,
Mm-hmm.
near Indian Lake, and that probably should be Malta. And you got that one.
Yeah,
You see near the red wedge?
Where it's that bright yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I see it.
I would check that too.
Okay. All right. And by the way, after we get this fixed, as I said, we might point this out to Scrog. So, yeah. Okay,
Everybody's on the same page.
all right, good, yeah. And then, the next page, page 4 then goes to your zoning code itself. Just a description of your zoning code, and there's a chart on page 4 of your zoning and a basic summary of the zoning. We felt it's helpful to put in the plan, because if a resident, wants this quick summary of the zoning without going through the whole zoning code, this is kind of a quick summary of it. And then we go through the residential, commercial, and industrial districts. And then you've got a zoning map here at the end.
And that is the town's data from the zoning.
The zoning map, right, is the town's data.
That should be accurate, but let us know if there's any inaccuracies.
So it gives residents hopefully a short synopsis of how land is used and how it's zoned in the town. By the way, at the end of each chapter, as we start into land use and zoning, the last, I think the most important thing is that the last page, we're trying to develop either issues or some recommendations. So you can see that most of these recommendations, I think, are consistent with your, Ozzy, they're consistent, I think, with what Glenn wrote
Right.
originally. But also, I was comparing them as Suzanne was going through the results of the survey. Preserve existing single-family neighborhoods is the top item that came out in the survey.
Yeah.
So I think you can now compare these to the survey results. Not that the survey should be, the ultimate authority or anything, but it's one,
Yeah, right.
it's nice to see where it does compare.
So on page 8, these recommendations were from the 2010 plan of development?
There's, some of them are, not all of them, but,
And some have been added
yeah.
Okay,
based on best
Ba-
practices.
ba- Based on your survey.
Well, partly they're, what I would say is based on, as Suzanne said, some best practices
Okay.
we've seen on, for instance, I'll give you one, Route 1 is an important commercial corridor. We put in 3.4.3, the last one there under Route 1. Explore strategies to reduce curb cuts and enhance road safety. reducing curb cuts means you're trying as different places come in before you all, to try to get, the key to the curb cuts is trying to get parking lots so that they have easements between them. This is not easy to do all the time, but this is something that we did up in Bethel successfully. We got curb cuts, easements to connect driveways in the back of buildings or the front of buildings, so that you didn't need, for an individual property, you didn't need always to have 2 curb cuts
Right.
into the more curb cuts you put on Route 1, the more dangerous the road becomes. So that's a good, what we call a good practice.
Right. I think I'm not positive, but I think our regulations reflect that goal.
And
That's
And we've
great.
done it.
We've done it a number of times.
You've probably done it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good.
So recommendation 3.4.1 to promote mixed-use development on Route 1 came from where? Because in the public input survey, it seems to say that the ratio of housing mixes we have now is correct. So where does that goal come from?
Is mixed use like retail?
Yeah, it's mostly,
living, or-
Yes.
yeah, it's mostly, we expect Route 1 to be basically commercial, but in some cases, it could be retail, and it could be office, personal services, which would make it more mixed use. And in some cases, it could be residential. So that's mixed use, yeah.
Okay, it doesn't
Yeah.
per se mean residential necessarily.
No, no.
It can, but it
You could
doesn't.
get something coming in that's retail on the ground floor and
Office.
office above.
Okay,
Yeah.
We've recently seen one that came in another town that was retail on the ground floor. It was a gymnasium, it was a gym, a health club, but it was on the second, I find unusual, but it was on the second floor.
The gym was on the second floor?
Yeah, the gym was on the second floor. Yeah, and then there was, that was it. So, we're just saying promote mixed use because, we're aware, a little bit, what's changed a little bit since since your current plan is what I call the Amazon effect. I mean, retail is under some pressure with people buying so much online, so that if you can allow a range of uses along Route 1, including, personal services, office, and you already have this in your zoning. Your zoning does pretty much allow those things. So allowing mixed use seems to us to be a good thing to do, so that the owners of property it can result in fewer vacancies, where they have multiple uses that they could rent to. So that's where that's coming from.
Okay.
That's sort of. So anyway, that, as you begin chapter 3, that's where we start in with some recommendations, and you want to make sure you're comfortable with those. So chapter 4, you want to do chapter 4?
Before we
Oh,
leave chapter,
sorry,
real quick.
sorry.
Just comparing the map on page 3 to page 7, where we had on page 3 that two-family home, and looking at map on page 7 with the roads delineated, I believe that's Treat Farm, so that should be agriculture, the yellow area, because it's on Old
I think you're
Tavern
right, yeah.
and Peck. And then if that purple area is Peck Place School, the
Yeah.
community facility, that should not be yellow two-family
Yeah.
homes, it probably should be agriculture, because it's
All
a
right.
farm.
Okay, that's
Okay.
important, thank you.
Good.
Thanks.
I wouldn't want to miss Treat Farm, Jim. Okay.
No, you don't.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so chapter 4 is housing and neighborhoods, and
Sure. So, chapter 4, we mention the state's plan, as well as we go through some of the different sort of ideas of what the current types of housing are on page 2. And I sent this to Jack, but let us know if we're missing anything else. This is a map showing your existing multifamily and senior housing and existing single-family residential. We tried to call out where they were because there has been a decent amount of them developed in recent years. So let us know if we're missing any, but we wanted to show the current mix of housing types in orange. the next page, figure 2, illustrates an example of a conservation or cluster development, and Glenn mentioned this in the last plan as well, but essentially the idea is to maintain the existing housing density if you were to do a conservation subdivision while preserving open space. So the traditional subdivision is large lots, and that leaves little space for conservation. A conservation subdivision promotes conservation through reducing the lot size very slightly, and allowing for that leftover space to be conserved. So an example would be in the residential zone that you currently have that requires 60,000 square feet of land area per single-family home. If you were to do a conservation subdivision, the same number of homes could be built on 40,000 square foot lots, saving a third of the land for open space. So this is just an idea for future conservation subdivisions.
And we just picked the 40,000 as an example. This would be up to you, the P and Z. But it's a way to actually preserve some significant open space. But we find that septics, they work at that kind of size. It does depend on the soils, but in general, at 40,000 square feet, the septics are gonna
And
work.
you're thinking the 40,000 also allowed for a reserve for these septics, or just the
Yeah, 40,000 I find is a pretty good, I happen to be the size of my, that the septics will work and you got a reserve area.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we chose it as an example, but if you,
Most of the old neighborhoods
That's
were
about the same.
3/4 of an acre, and that's
what we're
almost a
doing
full
for-
acre.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So it's a way to preserve open space, and get, and, I wouldn't, you wanna check, you probably want an applicant who wants to do that, you wanna probably check that you're not on, clay soils, where that, you may have, it could be an issue.
Yeah.
But I find most septics, 40,000 is,
I'm trying
You
to
know.
remember, back during those hearings, because a lot of it was driven by soils, I believe, as to when we went from 40 to 60, right?
oh, you were at 40 at one time. Yeah, we're not suggesting, by the way, the important thing here that we want the public to understand is, there's no increase in density here.
Right.
That is,
Right.
in order for them to do this, the applicant would come in and show you a standard subdivision with 60,000 square foot lots, that, okay, here's the number. You have to accept that number before you then allow them to cluster. And when they cluster at the 40,000, they can't get any more units. Because you gotta do it that way, or you're not gonna get a third open space, a third of the property in open space. So it's not, this is not any increase in density, it's just, it's slightly reduced, well, we're reducing by a third your lot size. But that reduction in lot size, I find septic still work, and with a reserve. And particularly the new septic systems are much better.
Okay.
So that'll work. And that's why we put it in here, because we thought Glenn had this, but he didn't illustrate it, so we decided to illustrate it. And we credited by the way, this is a very popular book in our field, and I just happen to know the author who said, yes, his name is Rendell Arendt, and he said, yes, you can use my drawings. These are his drawings, so.
All right.
Anyway, that's, and then,
Housing stock and
Yeah.
development, you can see that the housing stock in orange grew by about 10% in the past 20 years. And we talk a little bit about vacancy in orange, and then looking at the amount of housing permits issued for single-family and multifamily units within the year. We talk about any sort of spikes, we can see by the Grand Reserve Orange, that 168 unit, that created a little bit of a spike in the number of permits. We also talk about the type of housing, renter occupancy is, or owner occupied units is much more popular, rather than renter occupancy in orange, that's composed of just about 10%. And so we don't have to go through each necessarily bullet point.
yeah, no, I don't
But,
think so,
yeah.
but these really reinforce that you are basically a single-family, major land use category, and that leads to ownership. Ownership type is very, Yeah, you're almost, you can see the ownership here versus rentals, so you've got a significant ownership composition here in orange.
And then just wanted to note, on the last page, you'll see that we mentioned the town's affordable housing plan that you completed in 2022, as well as the certificate of affordable housing completion that the town applied for in 2024, stating that the town has more than 3 times the required amount of affordable housing.
I believe that we received,
You have.
that we applied for and received
Yeah.
a certificate of
Okay.
completion.
Okay, great, so we'll update
Right.
that.
Because we got the moratorium, yeah.
Okay, great. And we wanted to just make sure we listed out some of the qualifying developments that were part of that calculation.
And then the recommendations are important for you to make sure that we are okay on these. But again, you can see there's a little repetition here of preserve the, established character, the housing character, of residential neighborhoods. And we did pick up, and we discussed this one before, this came from our first workshop and some comments that were made, kind of explore opportunities to streamline the approvals and permitting process for housing rehabilitation, for, just adding on or that type of issue, not for new construction as much, but
That would be the building department, right?
that would be the building
Do that.
department. Yeah, it doesn't affect, it really.
I thought I
doesn't
read
affect-
somewhere in what you presented tonight about making, streamlining regulations that allow for in-law apartments or,
Yes, that's the
Housing.
second one there, 4.2.2. Review and update the in-law apartments, or we call them accessory dwelling units. And again, that one, by the way, you may want to, if you get to this, I mean, this would be an implementation thing from the plan, but as you probably know, the state has got a set of regulations on accessory units right now. So if you do ever pursue this one, this recommendation, you may want to, whoever does that work would want to look at the state
Right.
law.
So again, going back
looked
to
at it.
what does recommendation mean?
Yeah,
These are recommendations you're making to us about incorporating into the plan.
yes.
Okay, so then we'll have a discussion with you and we'll say, we looked at the state's proposed statutory requirements about accessory apartments, decided we did not want to participate.
And by the way,
can
And so that
remove that.
That's up to
recommendation
you.
will go.
Exactly, yeah.
that's
Okay.
right.
Well,
That's
we did
correct.
that, didn't we?
In other words,
We did that,
what's,
right?
We did that.
Yeah.
yeah, what's
I
in the
don't know what I had
plan,
for lunch.
okay, what's in the plan for a recommendation doesn't bind you to a zoning. But it does work the other way. If you wanted to change something in zoning, it is good to have it in the plan. But because
Because-
you have something in the plan, doesn't bind you to
Right.
following it up. But I think it does make some sense to try to streamline your accessory unit, but that's up to you. That's up to you. And then you can see, we kind of emphasized 4.2.3, consider adopting conservation subdivision regulations. And that one, I think, is very beneficial because it doesn't increase density at all. It's in your single-family neighborhoods. Actually, you won't have many, I don't see many opportunities, actually. I don't know if you get many subdivisions. Yeah, there's not too much left. You probably wouldn't get many subdivisions, but I think if you did have one come in, this is in your plan. You could ask that applicant to consider, it provided, again, the soils perk and everything. You could get 25%, 30%, a third of the property preserved as open space. So I think it's a good one.
Okay.
So those are the key, housing, recommendations, so.
The next was transportation, do you want to do that one?
Yeah, I can do transportation. It's, again, we talked here first about, regional connectivity. This is mostly for, you all know this, but, for someone who's say, come into town, reading about it a little bit, how the roadways are. These, on page 3, this language we're using is kind of state DOT, Department of Transportation, wording on the interstate highway system, and then arterials, because what we're trying to do, though, is to emphasize, and this goes into page 4, a little bit, the roadway jurisdiction. Then we get into average annual daily traffic, and you can see that at the bottom of page 4. I mean, you know, it's as expected, right? The interstate I-95 is 128,000, depends on where you do these counts, but it's about 128,000 or so on I-95 here in Orange. And then the Merritt Parkway is, you know, kind of half that, at 64,000. And then you can see Route 34, 28,000. So it gives you an example of how these, how the traffic, you know, goes down as you get off the state highways. And then what we've done in figure 2 on page 5 is we've just given the road system and what the state counts are on the different roads. So you can see how the roads operate. By the way, this kind of is important because where you have a lot of traffic is where you normally are going to eventually, you know, and we'll get to that on a crash map or an accident map. But page 6, we just did this deliberately so that people would understand that everything in red here are your major roads, and they're all controlled not by the town, but by the state. And so you've got, you know, coordination with the state is kind of important on these roads, like Route 34, where you have, you know, you do have some crash data that indicate 34 is a road where you've got some accidents, but that needs coordination with the state and the state to make some safety improvements. And then we go into the crash data on page 7, but it's illustrated. The map to look at is on page 8, and it's really a sort of density map of where, you know, the higher crashes or accidents are, the deeper the color, as the color gets to red and then purple. And you can see it along Route 34. By the way, you can see it a little bit on the Route 15 on the exit, Route 15 and 121. And then, of course, where you'd expect it is Route 1. And that's why we were saying on Route 1 too earlier that if you can, and you're probably doing this, trying to minimize the number of curb cuts, you know, on Route 1. That would help with these crashes. So that's what we go through, and then go through recent and planned roadway improvements. We got these basically from talking to the state and your DPW here. So that's where that is coming from.
Okay.
And then, by the way, public transportation, you can see the mention of rail there is just 2 paragraphs. Glenn had, you know, a page on this, and things have changed. So there's, we just mention here the commuter station is no longer going to happen. And then we go into Connecticut bus service, and the bus service we've kind of mapped out, but it's where I was a little surprised at it because I'm not surprised, I guess, because it does go east-west, which one would expect. I mean, here they are in green, that's Route 34, and purple and red, that's basically Route 1 and I-95. There's nothing north-south, so that's bus services connecting into New Haven, basically. It's what it's doing. And then we cover journey to work, and it's mostly, as you would expect, but it's a little higher than I thought. How many people drove to work alone? 86%. So you've got a very large percentage of people that's how you get to work, and that's true of most of Connecticut. So it's not a surprise that way. one of the things, by the way, that some towns are experimenting with a little bit in Connecticut is this ability to call up a sort of smaller transit. It's usually not a bus, it's usually a van. And because you don't have bus service in most of the town, there's not a density to support it, I think. But what my own town, Madison, is got an experiment on this too. The idea is you can call this van service, and it promises that within a certain time limit, 20 minutes to 30 minutes, they would be able to pick you up. And they're going in a certain direction, and they will veer from that direction depending on what your destination is. So it's a smaller service, it's an on-demand service. By the way, it is very similar to Uber, but it costs less.
And we know you have currently operating out of the community center fleet of
Yes,
vans. Yeah,
yeah.
that's for,
So you've got,
People-
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Okay.
And then the only thing on pedestrian, we mentioned sidewalks already on both sides of Route 1. The state is, in their new plan for the western end, our understanding is they will, in the improvements they're making, put sidewalks in. But it's the eastern end where we're hoping that they could come back and put sidewalks in at some point. Getting them to do that, I mean, it depends on their capital budget, but if you get it in the plan, we think it does help to be able to point out to the state. It's in the plan, it's in your
Yes.
local plan, and they're supposed to consider that. So I think on Route 1, that would be the major thing in terms of sidewalks. The other thing that we picked up from Glenn, and I presume Glenn discussed this with everyone, is I thought it was a good recommendation. He has a recommendation in your current plan to come up from Route 1 to here, to the town center, with a sidewalk on one side of the road. And you already have some sidewalk infrastructure here and also in the community center. So we thought this was a good recommendation. Doesn't have to be done now, it doesn't commit you to, now we gotta do this in 5 years, no. But if it's here, I think, again, there has been, I'm not sure how much is this gonna last. There has been a lot of grant money in the last 3 or 4 years for sidewalks. And I know, again, in my community I live in, we've got a grant to build more sidewalks in the downtown area. And so you might be able to use some of that grant money from the state eventually. And that's the only real sidewalk, other than Route 1, that's the real place we think, at least the sidewalk's going someplace. It's coming up to your community center
Right.
from Route 1 and then going a little further to here. And we thought a logical place to end it is at your, the store, the
Convenience store.
convenience store and deli there. But we get into that in the economic development chapter. We think that is a great place to encourage improvements.
So you're thinking a sidewalk from Route 1 all the way?
Yes, all the way
But-
up.
but
Along Orange
part-
Center
Part
Road.
of that are private residents, so.
Yes, there are, and
Okay.
we're not expecting those residents to pay for that. We're expecting someone else, like your grant money from the state, so that will pay for it. But normally what happens though, once a sidewalk's in, although someone else paid for it, the resident's responsibility is to, it snows.
Yeah.
You're not gonna come and clean off the snow, as a town, they're gonna do that. So, it's a big undertaking and, but it's over time and we thought that recommendation from your current plan does make sense. It's a sensible recommendation.
Okay.
By the way, at your last meeting, a woman was here and she asked us to go look at another road and we looked at it and it doesn't make sense. I think on any other sidewalks, it really needs a careful analysis because I think this one, of all the ones we've heard about, makes sense. So,
Plus anything along the post road,
and, oh yeah, we're assuming the state would build
right?
all those sidewalks on the state road, on Route 1. They really should do that, because it's Route 1 is
We
a,
requested them 3 times,
Three-
with the center lane widenings, and the state
Yeah.
has refused them 3 times.
Yeah.
We're waiting to see what they do with
Yeah.
the next widening from Lambert Road towards Millburn.
and I think, as I mentioned, if it's in your plan, I realize, if it's in your plan, they can still ignore you, but they're supposed to consider what's in your plan. So it might give you, might,
Marie and I can both tell you.
Yeah,
they've
didn't
refused
matter
us
to them,
3
right?
times.
yeah, yeah. I've been, I spent about 35 years on the other side of Condot, so I know the feeling, yeah. But I think still it's good, you know,
I tried.
yeah. So,
All
that,
right.
that's the, by the way, on bicycles, what we're recommending on bicycles, bicycles are something that, your roads don't lend themselves to easily. The state roads here, the major state roads, that have to be widened, to get in bike lanes. So we suggest on bicycles,
Just don't wind it
before considering something there, is you would need, it's worth doing, if that comes up, it'd be worth doing a comprehensive bicycle study. The safest bike lane is an off-road bike lane. That's the safest one. The next one is a separate bike lane on the road, that's protected in some way. In other words, you've got some wider striping, and to do that properly, you need to widen most of these roads. And the state, if they're not gonna, if they won't even do a sidewalk, they're not gonna do that properly. So I think any bicycle, it would need a separate study. And we're saying that here, so again, it gives you the ability to consider that in the future.
Okay.
The worst one, I shouldn't say it's worst, but, you know, we've seen some towns just, let's do what they call a sharrow. That is just, you put up a sign and you stripe something in the road and you say, oh, share the road. Well, you know, that is not
Yeah.
a very
Not safe,
safe
yeah.
What's that,
bicycle
Folks
way to
on
bike.
Spokes in Milford, or?
I don't know, but in New Haven, they have these bike lanes that
Yeah.
end in the middle of the intersection.
Right.
Well, that's right, and you want to avoid that, that's right. You want to, that's what I'm getting, by the way,
Population control.
thanks, Paul, that's what I'm getting at. You shouldn't just, the bike lane, it has to be thought through. Where is it going? And how is it ending? And you don't end up in the middle of the road at a stop, you know, or a stoplight or stop sign. You've got cars on both sides of you. That's not the way to do a bike lane. So it needs to be thought through.
Right. Okay.
And the sharrow, the so-called sharrow, is the most dangerous. In other words, it goes from an off-street bike lane is the safest, then a separate bike lane that has some separation on the road. Even if it's just striping, the worst way to do it is to put up Jersey barriers, you know, that's ugly and it's not very appropriate, I think, to the town like this. But that creates safety, and then a bike lane that's just striped. But a sharrow, just sharing the road is leading, that could lead you into litigation, I think, so
Yeah.
unnecessarily. So it's,
All right.
at any rate, so then there's recommendations at the end, which I think I've basically covered. You know, the big recommendation here is, but he's not listening, is despite how hard it is sometimes to coordinate with DOT, you don't really have you know, all the major roads are state roads, so careful coordination with them just makes sense.
Right.
You know, to,
Okay.
as much as possible. So that is, chapter 6, transportation.
Real quick, on page 14,
Oh.
section 6.2 typo address, we need another date.
Oh, thank you.
For- Get that?
6 address, thank you.
Oh, gee, got it. Okay,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, I can do chapter 7, open space, historic and community facilities. So we know this is based on the community survey, an important chapter for many residents. And we wanted to really identify ways to preserve the existing parks and open space, as well as providing strategies for future preservation and expansion of the assets you already have. So page 2 is a map of open space in Orange. Once again, some of this is from the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, but if any of it is inaccurate or has been updated, let us know, and we can update accordingly. We then go into sort of a description of some of the most prominent dedicated open spaces, as well as managed open spaces in town. We mentioned the recent purchase of the Raceburg Country Club, the 287 acre site. That's happened since the last POCD, and the fact that acquisition of land like this allows the town to really preserve this area for recreational uses. In terms of natural diversity, this is what DEEP likes to call their areas that are endangered species or contain federal listed species that are historic. And this is really, this is a broad sort of bubble diagram, but the point is, when thinking about preservation in the future, it's good to take a look at what some of those more sensitive areas could be. Another key part of Orange's identity is the agricultural lands. I wanted to know on page 7, this data is also from the SCROG, what's categorized as farmland to them. So if any farms are missing or aren't in the SCROG's database or are no longer farms, let us know and we'll update this accordingly. For historic and cultural resources, we talk about the Orange Center Historic District, some of Orange's historic places, the Historical Society.
I just want to highlight that.
Yeah.
On the Orange Center Historic District, the second paragraph, we really think it would be, it's not in this, we really think that your Orange Shopping Center here would be, it would be good to have in here this, we just say encourage the owners to, where possible, upgrade it, update it, upgrade it.
To match the rest of the district.
Yeah.
We talk about educational facilities, and this data here in the chart that compares 2024 and 2025 enrollment, that is from the Orange Board of Education, just to note, so that is accurate from then. We talk about various municipal facilities, and the recommendations cover open space and park, agriculture, historic and architectural resources, as well as community facilities. So you can take a look at that chapter. It covers a few different topics. And the last chapter is infrastructure. Do you want,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, I can
Go
start
ahead.
and you
Yeah.
can jump in.
Yeah.
So, we know water resources, that's something Glenn emphasized in his plan, is particularly important to Orange's environmental health. The water supply, public water, is controlled by the South Central Regional Water Authority. And, there's a few areas of impaired water bodies, and that's what DEEP likes to consider water bodies that, want to emphasize of particular importance managing the water quality in those areas and potential environmental issues related with that. On page, there's no page numbers on here, there should be, but on figure 3 is the service areas of community public water system. You can see most of the town is covered by public water. We mentioned stormwater management, and we referenced the report that was performed by Cardinal Engineering, looking at some neighborhoods that were affected by tropical storms, just noting that there's some areas that have experienced localized flooding in recent years. We talk about FEMA flood hazards of most of the area of Orange is in the 500-year floodplain, so considered to be of minimal flood hazard areas. The other areas are really just located immediately around those bodies of water. Sustainable practices, this we built out a little bit since the last plan, and some of that is just getting at some of those best practices. They're pretty broad as of now and just really focus on not mandating anything, but incentivizing people to have green practices and conserve energy. Lastly, sewage treatment. This map has the most up-to-date information that we received from your DPW and their GIS mapping from Ty and Bond. So this should have all of the parcels that are part of the Orange Sewer Service area right now, specifically the areas that are served by the intermunicipal agreements between Orange and the city of West Haven and the city of Derby. And most of the recommendations really just look at continuing to manage those areas, promote sustainable practices as possible, and in terms of sewage treatment, maintaining existing capacity and then evaluating necessary infrastructure upgrades as needed for those older underperforming septic systems.
Okay.
That was a mouthful, but
And that's really the chapters, the one chapter that we have coming to you, which we hope will get to you either this Friday, hopefully Friday, is economic development, which Thomas Madden, I hope, has met with you, and, yeah, good. So, that'll be the final chapter, and we'll also make sure that these chapters, the sources for this, will, share with DPW and,
Right.
SUNES and other people that we've talked to, so that, by the time the workshop comes, we should have, once you're happy with this.
Yeah. All right, I mean, it seems like we're off to the races
Yeah.
here. I mean, I guess our homework is to look through these chapters with a fine-tooth comb, raise any questions. And we can raise those questions to you directly by email or through
Yeah,
Jack.
although I would go through Jack, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so we all see them.
You all see them that way.
Right.
You all see them, and then Jack tells us, okay, make the
Yeah, why don't,
change.
in the meantime, we'll take a look at the land use data and make sure that that's as accurate as possible.
All right.
because we want to
Yeah,
make sure-
we'll do.
so we have 2 weeks. Maybe, let's call it a week to get our comments done.
If possible, yeah, next
Because
Wednesday,
you want to have a
March
little
12th.
time to incorporate those
Exactly.
comments.
Yeah,
And then post the chapters online so the public can view them before the workshop. So
Alright.
by March 12th, next Wednesday, would be,
Is that-
would be,
yeah, and if you need more time,
No, I'm just,
Suzanne can come to your next meeting.
yeah, and
Yeah,
then,
but for instance, if there's something like, if you're all happy, I'm gonna pick the two ones that don't have any recommendations. If you're happy with chapter 1 and chapter 2, that's the introduction.
Yeah.
And demographics, and we'll check the school.
yeah,
It's supposed
that's
to
the
get
one
back to us.
outstanding item for that.
It's the one
chapter.
outstanding, but if you're happy with those, we could get those up online, say, next Wednesday
Right.
or Thursday. But then if you need time, and you may, on the
Right,
other
so again-
chapters, that's fine,
our homework is
yeah,
to get a good look at these things over the next week.
yeah.
And get any comments we have to Jack, and in turn to Suzanne,
Yeah,
so that we finalize each of these chapters before a week before the meeting,
Yeah.
before the public meeting,
yeah.
right?
Everything that goes up online will also have draft written on it too, so.
Oh, yeah,
just to
everything will
ensure-
have drafts still. We consider everything a draft that goes online, but we don't want to put it online till you've,
Yeah,
yeah,
all right, all right.
great.
Anything else, or that's,
No, really, that's it. I think
All right.
we've covered our workshop and the dates and the timeline, so
all right,
we're,
yeah, so let's,
yeah, okay,
Appreciate it. We'll
yeah,
follow up
very
with
good,
you.
Yeah.
thank you.
Good job.
Okay,
good,
all right.
okay. Yeah, thank you, all right. This is a meeting where you have another agenda, a few other,
Yes, we do.
That
Yeah.
was yours.
okay,
Is that yours?
thanks, I'll take that. All right, great.
All right, next item on our agenda. Report of the zoning enforcement officer, we'll skip that tonight since Jack's not here. We have 2 public hearings. Item number 5 on our agenda is an application for special exception, permit or use, and site plan application submitted by DTB Orange LLC. This is for the property known as 112 Boston Post Road. And the proposal is to remove the existing former Subway building and construct a dual-lane drive-through service coffee stand with car hop services. Paul, do you want to open the public hearing by reading the legal notice, please?
To appear one time on Thursday, February 20th, 2025, and one time on Thursday, February 27, 2025, the Orange TPZC Notice of Public Hearing. Notice is hereby given that on Tuesday, March 4, 2025, at 7 p.m. at the Orange Town Hall, 617 Orange Center Road, the Orange Town Plan and Zoning Commission will conduct a public hearing on the following: an application for a special exception permit or use and site plan application submitted by DTB Orange LLC for property known as 112 Boston Post Road to remove the existing former Subway building and construct a dual-lane drive-through coffee service, through service coffee stand with car hop service. A copy of this notice has been filed with the Orange Town Clerk. Additional information is on file in the Orange Zoning Department, dated in Orange, Connecticut, this 19th day of February, 2025.
Okay, great, thank you. Is the applicant present? Good evening.
I'll stand up here and
Yeah.
put my board up on the windowsill, if that's all right. It should be high enough so people can see it.
That would be great. If you could start by introducing yourself.
Absolutely. Good evening. My name is Marcus Puddock. I'm a civil engineer and land surveyor at Godfrey Hoffman Hodge, located at
Your last name, please?
Puttock.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Godfrey Hoffman Hodge is located at 26 Broadway in North Haven. Good evening. We're here to look at the proposal to remove the existing, or what was a Subway and some other commercial space at this plaza at the corner of the Boston Post Road and Bull Hill Lane, both of which are state roads, and replace them with a drive-through coffee shop, which will look very much like this, the one I have on my board here. This is the first one that was constructed in Connecticut. It is in Wallingford, so it will be similar but not exactly the same. The building is essentially the same. Some of the materials have changed. They use a brick for the white, or the lighter color material is a brick type facade nowadays. But this, I wanted to bring this picture just to sort of demonstrate how this business functions. They are essentially drive-through only. They have one person who takes your order on an iPad, much like the Chick-fil-A does these days, especially in North Haven, which is one of the busiest Chick-fil-A's. But so there are employees that stand out there, and as you pull through the lanes, they come up to your window, take your order. If you're paying by credit card, take your payment. If you're paying by cash, you pay when you get to the front of the line. So you would come to the red stop, and then a separate person would bring your drink out to you and take your cash payment or give you your receipt and send you on your way. So I thought this was a good illustration to sort of give you a visual of what this business will look like.
Why would anybody go into the building? Just to use the restrooms? or-
There is no reason for customers to go into the building. There's no seating in there or anything. There is a restroom in the building, but it's for employees only. There is the ability to walk up and order. So if you were at the plaza, if you were at the bridal shop or whatever in the plaza, you certainly could walk over and get a drink. They won't turn you away if you don't have a car, but that's not the business model. Is to drive up, get a drink, drive away, and to get folks in and out as quickly as they can. So as we have, this is the survey of the parcel. So the existing building that's to be removed is up in the front corner, very close to the property lines of both the Post Road and Bull Hill Lane. So in replacing this building with our building, we did need to go to the zoning board of appeals and get some variances for being too close to both of those street lines. The setback in this area is 50 feet, and a lot of what we have is well within that, but they did approve those variances. So right now, the building is only like 4.5 feet off of the Bull Hill Lane street line. We're moving it back. Our building is 30 something. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't know a lot, but so the building is 30.3 feet back, and our canopy, which sticks over the drive lanes, is 11.5 feet. So we've improved dramatically that situation and the visibility at this corner. So we're moving on. We are removing the building and a few of the trees, on the site. Most of the trees along the street frontage will be preserved, and we intend to protect those so that they are not harmed.
Are you expecting the clientele to come, the cars to come in off of the Post Road, or actually enter on the Bull Hill side?
The answer would be yes. We expect and hope that they would enter from whichever one is safest and easiest for them to get to.
Say that, what was your question?
Well, I know that traffic pattern over there, right? And I'm curious, right now, you enter into that complex, for lack of a better word, from the Post Road side.
For the most part.
You make a right turn.
And you make a, well, yes, you make a
So-
right turn and you kind of go
If you're
around
coming
in a U.
from Milford as opposed to West Haven.
Yes, I'm sorry.
You make a
That's
right
perfect.
turn
And then you have like a big U parking lot.
around
that-
around the back of the other building.
Right, which leads you to the subway.
Right.
Okay, that's the only curb cut, I think, on Post Road.
And that would be,
There is only one curb cut on the post road, so it is a very wide one lane in, and then a right and a left turn lane out
Out.
on the post road. And
that's not
then
my
there is a
concern.
driveway on Bull Hill Lane,
That's the
which,
one I'm
which we
curious about.
propose to have to mark as a right out only.
So it's an
and-
out.
And it does have an entrance as well.
What's the size?
In speaking with DOT, they've already indicated that they would like us to look at that a little harder, a little closer, and make that a
10-foot.
right in, right out only.
Right in, right out, so that won't be an in any.
Right in.
right in.
So you
So
can
Right
take a
in.
right off of Bull Hill.
Right, yeah, so you, so
take
if
a
you.
right
if
in
you-
Bull Hill Lane.
You'd have to
So
widen
if-
it, right? You'd have,
We'll have to realign it some and
Yeah.
whatnot to
Have to
do
turn
so, yes.
Big sign saying,
Um,
don't come, we mean you.
Well, it'll involve realigning it so that there's an island in the middle, and this is, make it difficult for somebody to turn across. Of course,
DOT doesn't want a left-hand turn off of Bull Hill into there because the stacking at the light goes back past that entrance drive.
Right, and I was concerned
Yes.
about the queuing
Not only that,
on
but
when you come in from Bull Hill, which way are they going?
Yeah, maybe we should let him do his
Yeah, okay, keep
presentation.
going.
no problem. I encourage questions because it only helps me out. It guides me in what I should speak about. So we get into the site plan. So the building's up the front. This is there are two buildings essentially associated with all of these. The main building, and then a smaller refrigeration building. It's basically just storage building and refrigeration. As we said, there's an entrance off of the Post Road, which is existing, and we would propose to leave that as it is with no changes. There is a driveway onto, an existing curb cut onto Bull Hill Lane. We initially intended to not do a lot of construction to that entrance, but it appears DOT is going to request that we make that a right in, right out. And so we will comply with whatever DOT requires, because we have no choice. In order to get an encroachment permit, we would need to comply with DOT.
so someone coming from West Haven on Bull Hill Lane
to take a left
can't
in.
take
Well,
a left.
It's gonna be on
They-
the Post
gotta-
Road.
you have to go to the
They would have
light.
to take a left onto the
Take
Post
a
Road
left
and
at
then
the
take a
light
And then cross the
and then
Post Road.
cross the
Yeah.
Post Road.
Yeah.
Cross the Post Road
Yeah,
to get into the
Uh-huh.
Route 1
yeah.
drive. Okay, just want to make sure I understood.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and if the maneuver is too difficult, they just won't come here. And that's unfortunate, but there isn't a whole lot of other way to, because of the site and the property lines that we have to deal with, there is no other way to get there. The one we do have a connection to the adjacent parcels, so there are driveway connections, so they could always go further up the Post Road and turn into the next plaza to get into our plaza if traffic is such that is an easier maneuver. We've all been on the Post Road and gone to the next plaza to get to the one before. So what we have is two drive lanes for stacking, similar to the picture. of 16 cars for stacking. We do intend to encourage other stacking and have signage to not block this intersection so that cars aren't sitting right here blocking other cars that are trying to get to other businesses and whatnot. My first name's Marcus.
Marcus, can you just show me a traffic flow, which way they're gonna be going?
So they'd be coming down through here and then exiting, and they can either go back and go out Bull Hill, or they can go across and exit out, at the front.
Marcus,
Yeah.
what was the point of that painted peninsula? Was that just to help
The-
cars
the-
direct
the
themselves?
The painted peninsula between the two lanes, it serves twofold. It separates the cars a bunch, which is where
No,
the.
not the divider, that
He means up on,
trapezoidal looking.
up on
Oh,
top.
shape.
this one here?
Yeah.
It is to guide cars out and around, just so that there is a catch basin, an existing catch basin in the pavement there that.
Oh, I see.
That we want to leave and be able to,
Sorry, I was just turning the mic.
okay. We want to leave that catch basin there, but we don't want cars to cut this corner really sharp. We prefer they go out and around. We don't want to create additional stacking here if we can avoid it. We understand cars and drivers will do what they're gonna do. But we'd like to guide them as best we can to be orderly.
At the northeast corner of the existing larger building, it looks like you've got a bollard within the 24-foot lane. Right at the bottom left of the existing building.
Yes, there is a bollard. That's existing, yeah, the bollard,
Right, no,
that's
I
there.
noticed.
Yeah, the existing lane is somewhat skinnier than we're creating, with the building that's there now. So I'm not sure why they installed that bollard. There is a walk around there, so. There is a curb with a walk there, so I'm not sure why they put the extra bollard in, or whether it encumbered. I'm also not sure how many cars actually hit that bollard. Maybe it's so they don't hit the curb, I don't know. That's most of, the rest of the plans are sort of the grading and utilities. We have some, some explanation of our queuing, our stacking for cars, in our stacking lane, we have 14. We have 14 in our queues, and then we're going to guide, with signage, we will guide folks to the back, and we have an additional 4 spaces of queue up in the back, where we're removing some parking spaces that we don't need, or that are excess.
I couldn't tell if that queuing note satisfied the fire marshal's concern.
That's exactly what I
About
was
not
gonna
having-
ask about.
We submitted it to him again, and I did not hear again from him.
He says, recommend removing the stacking of vehicles behind the adjacent building on the lot for apparatus access.
So.
Sounds like he's concerned
Th-
about
this-
this.
This was set up after we had talked about that with him. Cause we initially were just gonna have them queue like sort of in the drive aisle, cause there was parking along the back. And he was concerned that there are dumpsters, if we're queuing in a drive aisle, that could create a fire hazard and especially for their apparatus when they turn up, which is why we identified some additional parking spaces that aren't necessarily needed per the code, with what all the businesses that are here, and created a designated separate queue line, for a few cars. We envision that as excess and overflow.
But if-
Cars come through very quickly, and we have 14
Right, but if there were a
stacking
backup,
spaces.
if there were a backup, it would be on that driveway toward Bull Hill Lane, wouldn't it? I mean, how would they know?
We
Well, actually-
tend to
actually, I
put
was saying-
signage to,
The
Guide them.
southbound traffic on Bull Hill from presumably ShopRite will sometimes back up all the way to that entrance, that Bull Hill entrance.
So there'll be cars backed up on Bull Hill Lane?
Yeah.
Well, but,
I mean,
are you talking about
But
heading
no,
toward,
no.
toward the post road? Tom?
No, turning off the post road and heading south on Bull Hill Lane, heading up the plan. Potentially obstructing, being able to get in
To make
here.
a right?
Yeah.
No, they won't be able to make a right. I don't know what that area is like right now, during ShopRite during the, during the day.
Is that curb cut being widened, Marcus?
We did not intend to widen it, and based on my conversation with DOT, my initial conversation with DOT, because they want it to be a right in, right out only, that actually be reduced, so there'd
I
be
happened
two
to
very
take a right in
small,
there With a car
yeah,
opposite me, and
yeah.
It's tight.
So,
I've
yeah,
done
let me
it.
ask you,
Yeah.
so a car comes,
It's really tight.
makes a left turn into the driveway, makes a left turn off of Bull Hill Lane into the driveway, sees,
They won't be able to.
No, I thought you said you
Yeah,
couldn't.
so we're going to try and DOT wants us to eliminate that, so that there's
Oh.
only a right in off of Bull Hill,
Oh, all
so
right.
somebody who's
All right, so-
already
all right,
turned
so-
left and goes, going in, and then a right out.
all right, let's say somebody makes a right turn
Yeah,
in from
They
Bull
come
Hill
in.
Lane. They see that
if this is totally stacked, there will be signage for them
direct
to
them
go
around the
around the
entire
building
building.
and,
In the
yeah,
back of the
queue in the
building.
back. Yeah, so
Get
that
a
they
bit-
don't obstruct this intersection. We also have employees out there if, taking orders and whatnot, who can also guide cars, request they not.
Is that fire lane existing, Marcus?
It is not,
The one
it's
behind?
proposed.
Because I know.
Because
We
behind the
proposed to-
building, there
all
are dumpsters.
Yes.
There's a Domino's pizza place somewhere in there. There's always Domino's delivery cars back there.
Yes.
It's really, I don't know if, it's cluttered. Now, maybe they're not operating it properly, but
well,
there's a lot of action back there.
does the owner of the property have the ability to correct those situations in the different part?
No, these are all, this is
It's
all
all
the
one
same
landlord.
property.
All
So,
same.
yes, the owner
in the
does have
common-
the ability to.
Well, he does.
That's why
unless
we
it-
were gonna
unless it
paint a fire
interferes-
lane to try and keep some of it a little more orderly, at least not have cars parked in there.
He does have that right, as long as it
Yes.
doesn't interfere with a lease he has with some other tenant in the building,
Yes.
Fair point.
who keeps his pizza delivery truck back there, or whatever.
My concern is if that doesn't get cleaned up back there, a fire truck could barely get through. Because I drive through there quite frequently, and it's
Okay,
tight, even
yeah.
for a passenger vehicle.
And it may be that other tenants in the building have rights
Mm.
to use that, which could interfere with the fire department,
Right.
right? I mean, is that what he's saying?
Yes, that's what he was saying.
Recommend
and
removing the
that's why he-
stacking of vehicles behind the adjacent building
Know where they would stop.
on the lot for apparatus access, so.
Yeah, which is what we did. That's why we moved him up here and put a fire lane in. If he's still not satisfied with that, then we will remove that signage. We would prefer that they circulate that way and stack over there to come into our, we just feel that that's a more orderly fashion to get them in and to avoid any backup in the driveway out to Bull Hill Lane.
Perhaps if we let him continue, we'll get to his traffic analysis where he talks about their projected queuing requirements, and maybe some of our concerns about stacking will be addressed.
So,
Okay.
He's real big on the continuing thing.
yeah, that's done. Of a landscape plan, much of the landscaping is existing, the dark green trees are existing, we have some smaller plantings in and around, in the new landscape beds. This is a fairly well-landscaped frontage, along this area. We believe we're enhancing it with a nicer building than what is currently there. So that's all I have to say really about landscaping, or the lighting plan showing the pole light to be moved over, And then most of our lighting comes from downlighting under the canopies. We are not increasing the impervious area on this site very much, is a very, very minimal increase in impervious area. So we've added a catch basin with a dry well and an additional catch basin that we're gonna connect to the existing system to manage stormwater and our roof runoff in an appropriate way. Erosion control measures are, silt fence along this is a flat site, there aren't any real hills, we don't anticipate any tremendous erosion. We'll put silt sacks in the existing catch basins to make sure they don't wash a lot of dirt down the stream, and obviously, when it's complete, we will clean all of those out. Into a bit of the layout of the building itself. So as I said, there are two buildings. The main building with a service area, a couple of counters for drink preparation, a toilet for the employees, storage in a cooler. Above the service area, there is a mechanical room that's accessed via a ladder. Essentially just mechanicals and a little bit of dry goods storage. These are the new materials, as I said, is a tan color brick veneer, and then the darker gray brick veneer.
Marcus, is that on the top rendering up there, are those the mechanicals that are visually, where you're looking?
So this is a door, so you go, from inside, you go up a ladder to get into that room. This is a door out onto the flat part of this roof where there are some mechanicals that are hidden behind the muffin top.
Okay.
So they're hidden behind the side of this.
Are they visual from Bull Hill? In other words, this is, I'm looking at facing, if I'm coming down, heading east on the Post Road, I'm gonna be looking at that facade, right? That, which way is that facing? Where they're,
So this is facing the front of the building here with the round is facing the Post Road. This would be if you're coming down the Post Road headed towards West Haven.
Yep.
So up Bull Hill Lane, you'd be looking at it at that end, and you might be able to see that door.
Okay.
There are trees and whatnot, but as you head up Bull Hill, towards the Post Road, you may be able to see some of that stuff on the.
What's
on
that
the
gray,
roof there.
Marcus? Is that an equipment screen or?
These?
Yeah.
Yes, there's like a fencing to screen some of the equipment that's there. So that's 3D rendering, so you can see there's just the one unit on there with some fencing. Or the building, so. We get into our traffic analysis. We used an existing Seven Brew in Vestal, New York, as our comparison. It's been around a little while and has sort of settled down and is well attended and well used.
what's the population of Vesta? Is something in Binghamton?
I don't know
Yeah.
off the top of my head. So, and the state DOT only allows for a 20% reduction in pass-by vehicle trips for a use like this in their calculations. So they assume that only 20% of the cars that come to our site, or that we can only reduce the number of cars that come to our site by 20% as cars that were passed by. So in other words, we are a trip end for the other 80%. they were specifically coming to go to this place. We don't believe that that's accurate for this type of business. The reason this business wants to be on this corner is because it is one of the busiest corners, and that's how they get business. People are driving by, they decide they want a coffee, they come in, or an energy drink, or whatever it may be. The teas, they have a variety of drinks. But based on the sales for a typical week at Vestal, they had a morning peak during the weekday of 64 cars, or 68 cars, the midday 68, afternoon 42, and then a Saturday midday, which would be one of your busiest points on a Saturday, of 66. So that would be what we would anticipate would come in through, that would come into this plaza. And based on what the ITE for this type of business would calculate, they would say that between 80 and 90% of the cars would be pass-by cars, so cars that were already passing by decide to stop. So we don't feel we're going to dramatically increase traffic on either Bull Hill Lane or the Post Road by being a destination, but rather the roads themselves are our destination. Folks are passing by
Cars are
and
already
decide.
there.
Cars are already there. We do hope to draw more cars into our plaza, and certainly the owner of the plaza is hoping that this will revitalize that plaza some. That existing Subway building has been vacant a long time and has seen better days. So we hope to revitalize this corner.
So in your analysis, using data from an existing facility that's been operational
Yep,
and is now at steady state with respect to customers coming in,
yes.
in your business model, how many cars at a peak time do you think will be in those two lanes trying to get beverages? You've got the capacity to take 14 cars off the table
So
and
the
queue them.
AM peak is 7 to 9. So in that 2 hours, we expect there to be about 68 cars.
Okay, so over 2 hours, and you're turning them over
In
in a minute, 2 minutes?
What's the usual
Yes.
time at
Uh,
process?
what's our goal time? 4 minutes?
3.5 minutes.
3.5 minutes.
Okay, so are you giving
So we-
testimony that you're at the AM peak, which is gonna be your busiest time,
Yes.
you will probably not have more people waiting for product than the 14 spaces in the two lanes?
We wouldn't anticipate there being more, other than, I'll caveat that with opening weekend, we may have more.
Yeah.
We
Okay,
hope
that's
to.
why I said steady state.
Yes, steady state, we believe 14 is a good number of stacking spaces.
Basing on Vestal's 31,000 people.
31,000.
Yeah. Because obviously, in the short period we've been interacting, our primary concern is public safety. And
Yep,
so we first have to convince ourselves that people aren't gonna queue out onto Route 1. That will also be the state's concern. Then, if it's not queuing out onto Route 1 or Bull Hill Lane,
yep.
it's an internal, is it gonna be an internal problem that then becomes an enforcement issue for, police, ZEO or whatever? when-
Or dangerous to employees.
Dangerous to employees, to customers, as people are parked wiggly-piggly outside of the areas and people can't get past them.
That parking lot, you go in on an angle, I believe, to the parking, is it on an angle in the parking lot? And you have to back out on that same angle
The parking along the front is all 90.
It's all 90?
It's only,
Okay.
it's only behind the building, there's some angled parking.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so that is obviously, you know, a concern that we would just like addressed in your presentation. And if you're saying that you don't, and you anticipate that the queuing and stacking you're providing will keep the drive aisles clear.
We do anticipate that the drive aisles will remain clear, and we do have staff outside to assist with that, if it is becoming a problem. And there is always staff out there, taking orders and whatnot, when we're open. So,
Yeah, and after asking other people to let you finish, I
Yeah.
have to ask a question. I didn't see a place order device at the head of the queue.
because there is no place, it's a person. So a person, as you drive up, a person walks up to your window and takes your order directly on an iPad.
Huh,
So it's an interactive business where you interact directly with the employees. One takes your order, they send it through the iPad into the building, somebody else comes out and brings you your drink when you get to the front.
What's the queue capacity at this other location?
Uh,
I mean,
Off the top of my head, I'm not certain.
Talking about the one in Vestal? Yeah.
Think,
My
Is
concern,
that on,
My-
is
my-
that on
our-
major, is that on major streets as well? You know, this.
yes,
Vest-
and so the one in Wallingford has a similar capacity, and it's on Route 5, right near Route 15
Do you
in
have any
Wallingford,
information
so
on the queue capacity for that?
it is essentially as a very similar cube capacity, and they haven't had issues there other than the first weekend when, they were giving away free T-shirts and they had some queuing issues.
You mentioned, Marcus, that one of the employees or the employees can guide, especially if there's gonna be an over-queuing. But it didn't sound like there was a dedicated employee to, like, manage the traffic.
There wouldn't necessarily be a dedicated
Right.
employee for that. It will settle down and they will have a good idea of what is gonna happen at this location fairly quickly. We anticipate that, like I said, the first weekend, there will be people out there. We'll probably have to, hire some police officers to, manage it just so that everybody remains safe. But we anticipate that it will settle down. People will come in, get their drink and go in a very orderly and quick fashion, where the queuing, we do not believe will be an issue. And we believe we have there's enough space on this lot for vehicles to operate and maneuver safely. Our queue entrances are far enough away from the post road entrance that we shouldn't affect that in any way, shape, or form. And we'll work with DOT to ensure that the Bull Hill Lane driveway gets realigned appropriately.
Do you have, a lot of times when we get traffic information, we get accident data.
I do not have accident data. For this area, we did speak with the traffic commission. Obviously, we went to the traffic commission prior, and we were told that this is not an area that they had any concerns about crashes. There are not a lot of accidents. That's what they indicated. The assistant police chief indicated this area was quite good for that.
Marcus, you said you wouldn't turn away patrons on foot, because there is still a shopping center there, there's still stores.
Yes.
How do they access your, I see there's a sidewalk on the rendering, but are there ballards, I just want to make sure people who walk over there are protected. Go ahead. Yep.
There is a sidewalk along the side of our building and along the front, and actually in and around, so they could cross the street and come up the sidewalk and be safe. We also painted out a fire lane there so that nobody ever parks directly up against the building. We want to avoid that at all costs, just for safety purposes.
So where does this stand now? You need to get approval from the state before?
No, we
You
need
need to get
approval
approval from us.
from you before the state will comment. The state doesn't want to tell you how to do it. So if you approve it in this state, and then they,
Then we
and
get,
you can approve it subject to DOT's approval of the driveway entrances, and then once DOT, but they don't want to go first, so they always ask that.
Do we have approval from, obviously the fire marshal had issues, anybody else?
according to Jack, we have in our package, the sign-offs
We-
by all the department
Yeah, all the
heads,
departments signed off, yeah.
including engineering. And Jack confirmed that when I spoke with him today. Tom, any other questions?
No, one of my biggest concerns is if that 14-car queue is exceeded, the whole site plan doesn't work,
Right.
because those cars have nowhere to go but to leave the site and take a right down Bull Hill Lane, and then loop around and go.
Are you talking about the cars that are coming in from Bull Hill Lane, right? And they come in and but
Really
they
talking
find,
about the cars that come off the post
I'm not even
road.
talking about those yet, yeah.
Well,
So you're talking about the ones that come in from Bull Hill Lane, they find a full queue.
yep.
Where do they,
Where do they go?
they forget about the coffee.
Right, I know, I get that part. They have to traverse, how do they get out of, they have to come into and go around?
Well, if they're in the right lane, they can just continue on past the,
But they won't see the queue, I guess they will see the queue from the road.
You'd
well,
be able to
if there's
see.
a car
From
in the
here
queue,
they
they
go.
won't be able to turn in there. They won't be able to make that turn.
If they are the car that makes it more than the queue, in other words, they're the
Yeah,
first one,
yeah.
I'm just curious, once they get in,
They're 15.
where do they go?
Well, once they get in, I guess they're all right.
This is the bigger problem. If they come in off the post road,
Well, that's another issue
take a
too.
left and go down the side of the building.
Right. So you mean they
Well,
come
I
in?
mean, in speaking with the fire marshal, he was less concerned with them stacking along the side of the building there and out around the front of it than he was in the back.
In the back.
And so, my anticipation would be that if the queues are on a regular basis in the morning when you're going to get your coffee, if the queue's that long and you aren't aware of how quickly the queue may or may not move, you probably would just not come in.
They'll do what I do and go to work at 10 o'clock after I get. my
Well,
coffee.
and wait for, wait for the queue to die down. Like we said, the queues move very quickly. We don't anticipate it being an issue. We do not have, there are over 300 of these in 32 states, and they all have a very similar queuing number and all seem to function quite well.
In the one in Wallingford, you're not having any issues, or at least not after the opening weekend.
No.
I mean, that doesn't look like as busy a road as the post
These
road.
two.
These
two
Route
roads.
Route 5
Or
is,
Bull Hill Lane.
Five.
The two.
Route 5 is
Yeah.
definitely
And it's right
every
near
bit as
the,
busy, if
where
not
it's very
busier.
busy, where Merritt
By the,
Parkway, Wilbur Cross.
Well, the
Yeah.
car dealerships and,
Yeah, this is
Oh,
right
I
up
know
by
you-
Stop
I know
and, this
you-
is
yeah,
directly
yeah,
across from
yeah.
Stop and Shop and that,
Okay.
very near the,
Yeah.
this is a very,
Yeah.
very busy portion
Yeah.
of the road.
Marcus, have you been to the site?
Yes,
Okay, so there's a lot of potholes. Again, it's a landlord issue.
yeah,
Would your potential tenant have any ability to say, I want to come, but you got to make this a safer? Very significant
My
potholes there.
understanding is the landlord is, this is the first piece of really making this a much better plaza, and upgrading it. They want it to be a nice place. We are certainly from the edge of the existing building over, we are anticipating replacing all of that asphalt. And certainly we could press the landlord to
Just tell him
at
to drive
least,
through a few times
yeah.
and after he's placed his tires, he'll
Yeah.
take care of it.
that certainly is
Just
something we could
to
ask of him.
mention, Yeah, for his well-being too, you know.
Yep. And for all of the other tenants
Were-
there.
Were any other plans considered? For
Well,
the site?
I not fully developed plans. I attempted to push the new building closer, you know, to get it within the building setbacks and things like that. As I said to the zoning board of appeals, I couldn't come up with a better circulation or a better location for the building on the site that made more sense and allowed for a greater number of stacking or a better circulation pattern. And as I said, this business, and part of what they really love about this location is being on that corner,
Right.
being highly visible.
Sure.
And so this was the best plan we could come up with.
Okay.
I want you to get to the end, because I don't know.
I have no,
Oh,
so
okay.
that, my presentation is complete. If you have any other questions of me, I'll do the best I can to answer them, and
I got
and
some
we
nuts
can
and
allow.
bolts, do you mind?
No, go right ahead.
Okay.
I was gonna ask for public input, but
Yeah.
let's finish your.
Okay, so first off, it's a very thorough set of documents. It's nice to have all the information where you need it.
Okay.
But, so, the existing center is an example of something that was overbuilt to start with, and, you know, it happens often that people try to maximize square footage instead of rent. And so they put too much square footage in a small spot, and corners are always a challenge. And you have tried to isolate this building from everything else that's going on in this center. And that's a good attempt. The problem is the existing center has some infrastructure issues. So you are providing 12-foot stacking lanes,
Yep.
and 12 feet's nice and comfortable for humans to drive in one
Yep.
way. But the existing entrance and exit out onto Bull Hill, those are 10-foot lanes.
Yep.
And it's, would that be up to current design standards if you had a blank sheet of paper?
No.
Okay. Then, so when you get into the center, everyone who's trying to maneuver, it also seems that if we're looking at a standard guide for double-loaded parking, it's actually 2 drive aisles, 2 center lanes, 2 drive aisles. So that would be 84 feet normally, right? Wouldn't it be an 18-foot space, 24 feet for 2 lanes, then 18 foot for another car, and 24? It seems like the existing frontage along Route 1 feels narrower than that, but we don't have any dimensions, so I'm not quite sure.
Oh, I apologize. Those are essentially the 24, 18, 18, 24.
Okay.
So they do function. It's a little bit odd that you have that much wasted space with drive aisles and no
Yeah.
parking on the other sides of them, but
Yeah.
there isn't any other way to fix that.
No. All right, so those
based
are
on this.
24 feet wide? Okay.
They are
Now you come around.
essentially 24 feet
Now you
wide.
come around the side of that building, and you want to have two-way traffic.
Yeah,
and you're showing 24 feet between the building and between curb lines, it looks like.
Yep,
And that would be two good-sized lanes. Why does it, and then it just shrugs down here to 22 feet? Was that just to get your building in, right? It's 24 feet, and then it turns down to
that's,
20.
yes, it necks down, between the existing parking and the front of our building, it does neck down to 22 feet, to get the sidewalk in.
Okay, but that's
and to
still gonna
maintain
try and
the-
be two-way traffic, right?
It is.
With that striped lane in there, doesn't it really feel like, you need to get some, you've got
So-
22 feet less
Yep.
whatever that hashed distance is.
Kevin, tell me.
So,
show
so
me.
we're talking about right here.
Yeah,
And this is really just fire lane, so we would, some people wouldn't drive over the fire lane, but it is intended to be driven over, just not parked in front of. So we intend to just paint it with no parking, but like many fire lanes in front of a plaza, you could drive across it, we just don't want you to park there.
so you don't mark like it's a parking lot, so you wouldn't mark a median line through the middle. People are just gonna sort of, if they have to pass each other, drive over the yellow stripe.
Yeah,
what you're saying.
they'll go around each other.
Kevin, I just want to make sure I'm keeping up. Are you talking about the two lanes
Right,
that are
right there.
coming
These two
in?
lanes.
Because they're coming in
just
from two
between.
lanes at 12 or 12 and a half on the,
12 feet, which is normal,
they have 12 and a half, okay, let's say 12 feet.
yeah.
And they come around, and they're both together, you're saying?
I'm saying
And it
if
goes down, it slims down to, it loses a foot and a half to 2 feet.
But then it also is visually losing the striping. So you're two cars trying to pass each other.
Right.
And,
I see what you're saying. We added we can take that striping out if it.
I'm just,
and
what's
I-
less
I-
confusing?
Yes.
And that's a fair and valid point. Maybe we just put some bollard or some signage on the sidewalk itself that says no parking,
Yeah.
so that
It's
folks
just,
don't park there.
obviously, your client understands flow is the lifeblood of his business,
Yep,
or her business, whatever the right thing to say is. So,
there.
So, what I'm trying to grapple with is, number one, can the rest of the center continue to function as it exists? Whether you're there or not. And basically, to the extent possible, it's the same site pre and post-construction for the existing tenants.
It is, for the most part.
Yeah, with the exception of whatever's going on behind the building.
There's a little bit of extra
Right.
pavement marking behind the building. And I take your point on this front one, and
Yeah.
I'm absolutely happy to change that to be more of just a signage
So then.
rather than a
So then
painted.
step one is do no harm. Step two is make sure that anything that goes on in the site does not leak out of the site. Okay? For me, or at least this is the way I'm looking at it. So I don't think that any problem that happens internal to the center has the possibility of backing up onto either Bull Hill or the Post Road.
I don't know about if I agree with that, both the post road for certain.
Yeah, Post Road, if something's going on, they're stacked out here. Bull Hill, if somebody comes in and there's somebody stuck right here, now they're faced with, they've only got, but you've got at least 2 car lengths of people at that decision point of a Bull Hill lane. So two people have to be stuck before there's a problem. You know, so, and then the third thing is, you know, once we're there, you know, can people safely negotiate that without, you know, it turning into, you know, one of those video games the kids play with pedestrians? So, go ahead.
So I just wanted to touch on, my recollection for the rest of this plaza, there were 4 or 5, I don't know if they're still, if they're vacant or not, but there were 4 or 5 businesses.
David's Bridal,
Yep, and,
GameStop,
yeah, there
at
was,
some point in the past.
right. So when you come out, you park usually directly in front of your business if there's enough parking. You pull back and now you continue, you can't go back the way you came. You have to
Yeah, no, you
continue,
can.
right?
It's a two-way.
It's two-way.
Both
Two-way,
lanes,
both lanes are
both lanes are
two-way?
two-way in the
Okay.
front. and,
Two-way out to
uh,
Post Road.
Yep.
So, yeah, they.
So that solves that
they-
problem.
Yeah,
They don't have to come.
they should be able to function. They don't have to circulate around the site. They could come in on the post road, park, back out, and go back out the post road, no problem.
Do they have the,
Absolutely.
do they have the ability to go around the horseshoe? Or is that not, does it come to a dead end? In other words, if the,
There is circulation around the building.
That's what I'm
You have the ability to, and there's additional parking.
you said in the back.
In the back, there's quite a number of parking spaces all the way up through here, and then there is a connection to the adjacent.
Yeah, I wasn't worried about
Parking
the
lot.
parking as much as I was
So-
worried
so-
about the
and
flow.
then this does have a drive aisle all the way through the back.
That folks could use. The fire marshal was concerned because there's a
yeah.
lot of activity back there. There's dumpsters and
Yeah,
everything, and if a
adventure.
car was sitting there,
Right.
they might,
Yeah, for
you know,
Domino's car, delivery cars there, and the dumpsters, that's one car's getting by.
Right.
Yeah.
and that's,
Yeah. All right, so then, are you comfortable with the coming in off of Bull Hill Lane? You striped you know, there's that striped peninsula that we've talked about before. And that, what is the, radius of that, curve on this is the construction plan, sorry, the site plan. Is that a comfortable radius that you've drawn in for a car to make the turn?
From coming in
Yeah.
off of this driveway and into this first lane,
Right.
that would be a very tight turn.
Okay,
They could certainly turn into lane 1
yep,
without great difficulty.
we anticipated if it were obstructed and they couldn't do so, that they would go around and make a more comfortable
From behind the building
right.
in.
And the 4 spaces,
Yeah.
that you run into before you get to the cooler, what are they, just general parking? Or are
They are,
employee-
there would be employees, so they have about 10 employees on their shifts.
so they would use these 4 and then some other
Spaces, predominantly the spaces up in the back, one would hope.
So
Okay.
do you need those 4 to comply to the parking regs for the overall site?
Yeah.
Um,
Or
Yes,
you
so
need them?
right now,
We have it at exactly what is required.
And how about deliveries or delivery trucks? When would they get their product and where would they park?
well, the delivery trucks would just park directly next to, essentially in our fire lane. But they would park next to the building and they would,
In off hours.
And as you are, after you've gotten your drink, it looks like you've got about a 2-car stack in a single lane, who then have to make a decision whether to turn left or go straight, correct?
Correct.
And you think well, maybe 3. And that works with your model of how fast you turn someone over?
It does, yeah.
Then, all right, we already talked about that the existing exit onto the post road and the existing entrance exit on Bull Lane at 10-foot aisles would not be up to a current width, if you were starting with a clean sheet of paper. They'd be 12 feet more likely?
The post road, the two out
Yeah.
would definitely be 10 feet.
Oh, they would,
Because
okay.
they want those narrow, DOT would require those to be narrow. The drive aisle, the 20-foot drive aisle out to Bull Hill Lane, the driveway itself,
Would have a little more
24
flare.
is preferable. It's not absolutely required. And as I said, based on my discussions with DOT, there will be some revision to that entire driveway right up into our site, making that a right turn in and a right turn out only, so that nobody is crossing Bull Hill Lane to either enter or exit the site, just based on the lanes on Bull Hill Lane. I don't
But
feel
right
that
now,
that's.
currently you can exit
You
left.
can, it's not marked at all right
It's
now,
not
so
marked at
people do
all,
whatever
right.
they want right now. And so we believe with a realignment of it, and an island in the middle to sort of
Correct.
force the issue. I mean, folks will still,
Yeah.
we know folks will still do the wrong
Squirrels.
thing here and there, but, if you do the wrong thing and get in a crash, then it's your fault, right? So,
On drawing C 2.1, you have a garbage truck movement, and I didn't really kind of understand how are they front-loading?
yes,
Oh, okay.
just a dumpster, so it just
So he pulls up front.
over, Yeah, yeah, yeah.
backs up and goes
And leaves, okay.
And that's always done early in the morning.
Yeah, they
After
do those, and we provide it, that's a couple of minutes worth of maneuver. It shouldn't block.
Are your green
The
strips gonna
entrance.
be irrigated?
I don't know. We will, they want all the vegetation to live, so we'll do what we need to do to keep our landscaping.
On your grading and utility plan, if you could switch to it, assuming the storm drainage works in the existing center,
Yeah.
it looks like you're taking one catch basin into that, which probably goes into the state catchment area out on Bull Hill Lane or Post Road
It
somewhere.
eventually does, yes.
Right. But the catch basin down in the corner as you're exiting your queuing lanes
Yeah.
just looks like a leaching catch basin.
It's a dry
single
well,
leaching
yeah.
catch basin. And
It's catching a very small area.
well,
and
it's
that's why
a
we-
small catch basin. It can hold like 700 cubic feet. No, yeah, 6 by 6.
Yeah, it's about,
Yeah, about 6. Anyway,
yeah, it's
so
about 250 cubic feet, yeah.
so you can take a couple of thousand square feet before, if there was no exfiltration, you could take
Yeah.
a couple of thousand square feet before it starts ponding, right? So if
Yes.
that fails, it's gonna then have to vent up to the other catch basin, so worst case, you're looking at an 8-inch puddle out there?
It would, I think it would puddle down across the front
Well,
first.
but the curb is, so it'd have to go 6 inches that way. And it'd have to go,
So I think we have a listing of,
161. Right. So if you, just from a practical standpoint,
yeah, I'm
Okay.
following you.
since you don't know what the soil's like in the parking lot, even though there's some sort of soil information here, I don't
There
think you
is.
did a boring.
We did not.
Okay.
We didn't go through the,
So you dig out that catch basin, and it's just a lump of clay there, what are you,
Then I will have to put an overflow pipe and connect it to the other basins to
or
make sure
get,
that it
somehow
doesn't.
get it out? All right,
Yeah, certainly we would ensure that it functions the way it's intended. It is a very small, so it is really just this front corner that is intended to go there. And we did that solely so that we weren't pitching any of the exit aisle towards the front door of the building because it's all flush. And so
Right.
we figured that very small area of pavement, we could contain in a 6x6.
all right, but when you're building this, and, you know,
Standard,
somebody
good
is
engineering
gonna
practices
go
will be.
take a look
approved.
at the whole,
Absolutely.
okay. It would be a shame to build it and then have an 8-inch puddle out there.
I agreed.
Okay.
And nobody wants to drive through an 8-inch.
No one wants to
so-
drive through that. Sorry. So you get one of the things that has, that, you know, one of the problems with living in the community is, in the adjoining community of Milford, they built a Dunkin' Donuts that has on the Post Road and West Street, where the queuing for the drive-through backs out onto Route 1. So
Is
you
that-
go, you
Is that
just,
the one directly across from the mall?
no, this is
Or
further down,
further down.
Route 1, past the police station. It's West
Okay.
Street, and you look at it, and you would think it would work. And it just, it's a nightmare. But it's a similar corner condition of a busy street and a cut-through street. What else?
Well, Dunkin' doesn't get them out as fast because they have to make,
That's it.
they have to make sandwiches
it.
and things like that.
There's a reason there's room for a new
We're-
company.
We're way better than that.
What you got?
I don't know the square footage of your green strip, but in section 383-123H, all landscaped areas 180 square feet and larger, and all green strips required as per section 383-121B must be serviced by an underground irrigation system.
Okay, we will,
So,
we will
if you-
certainly comply.
yeah, okay. You might be under it, I don't know.
Well, the thing is, most of the green strip is the state right-of-way.
We certainly won't be irrigating the state right away.
Yeah.
But the internal ones in and around the building, certainly,
Yeah, again, it benefits
if,
them.
if they're over 180 square feet.
Public
Any-
comment?
Any other questions? No? Okay. Do we have anybody in the public who wishes to speak to this application?
Hello, everyone. My name is Anne Marie Slyby. I am the Executive Director for Orange Economic Development Corporation. We're located at 605A Orange Center Road, right next door.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Sure. S as in Sam, L-I, B as in boy, Y.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to speak in favor of Seven Brew, maybe some things you don't know about them. They are the beverage shop, drive-through, like they said, with car hop service. They sell hot and cold specialty coffee drinks. They sell ice cream shakes, energy drinks, lemonade, sparkling water infused with flavor of your choice, teas or cocoa smoothies. You can pick your own flavors, or you can use one of their own recipes, so it's a It's a neat, unique type of service. Again, like they said, no food is served, so it's easy in, easy out, and very quick. No customers are in the building. It began in Rogers, Arkansas in 2017, and they have more than 321 locations. They've been expanding in the Northeast, and this would be their third location in Connecticut. They have Wallingford and Vernon, and they're in process for Springfield, Mass., and they have 6 in New York. They're successful, and their plans are to continue to expand. They'll create jobs, which is great. And their specifications require this type of corner, so, you know, trying to offer them a different property in Orange, this seems to be the only location that would work for them, so we'd hate to lose them. The subway building, as you know, has been out for a very long time, and this model will make the plaza more conforming. It would be really attractive, and they're a very valued company, and it's a great opportunity for Orange, and we'd love to have them. So, any questions or comments about that? Okay.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Yep.
Is there anyone else in the public who'd like to speak on this application? Okay. Well, you have anything further, or?
I don't know if you're supposed to ask if there's anyone that wants to speak against it, but I'm all set
I
with
just
my
mean
presentation.
generally speak.
Yeah, there's only a few folks, so I'm all set. If there are no other questions from the commission, then I'm happy to sort of rest.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I myself am inclined to keep the public hearing open. There are some revisions to the site plan that we asked for that need to be made, that would need to be made.
Also, Jamie, the fire marshal.
And
has
that's,
more.
Yeah, that's, I would like to get that resolved,
I got to better understand that.
behind that building, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Kevin?
Well, just a practical issue, okay? So, next meeting, you're gonna have 3 members, so they'd have to get a unanimous vote.
Hang on, who's
Yeah, I mentioned to everybody that I wouldn't be here for the next meeting.
And
I think Kevin's gonna be
I am
available.
also gonna be out,
in Philly?
yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can't take it at the meeting after that, I
Right,
guess.
or.
Yeah, but then you might need an extension in there.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
We're, okay.
What,
Okay.
65 days or something?
All right. I would like to, I mean, I've driven behind there recently, but I'd like to go back.
Yeah.
I think we all should.
I think that we should consider, the state DOT is not gonna act until we act. Okay, so the question is, if after we're going out there and looking, we think that we really, the entrance and exit on Bull Hill Lane does need to be right in, right out, is that something that we ask them to show on the plan, so we know what we're basing our approval on, rather than just saying, subject to,
I think we can make an approval, if we give one, conditional.
right, but you don't know the geometry, so who are you gonna count on to approve it? The state, obviously, is gonna
Yeah.
approve it.
Well, we can.
But we can
we
write,
can make
it-
we can write whatever
Right, we could make it, we can make the, as you said, the approval conditional on that.
yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying, if that turned out to be something after walking it, because it's just,
We
it feels
wouldn't, we
really narrow.
wouldn't say.
It is
We
really
wouldn't
narrow.
say our approval's conditioned on the approval from the state, because what you're suggesting, I think you're correct. We may not be happy with what the state approves. So our approval would be conditional on the state approving.
And
what
right-
we have in mind for that,
And what they
location.
were talking about, what Marcus was talking about before, he believes they're gonna go for a right-in and I mean, as you exit, you have to make a right turn.
Right.
Yeah.
And you
And as you
can't make-
come in, you have to make a right.
Coming
right
from
hand.
Bull
You
Hill
won't be able
Lane,
to take a left from
into
Bull
Bull Lane,
Hill.
correct.
Right.
Actually, exiting and taking a right on Bull Hill Lane is not really a game breaker.
No.
Oh, that's
'Cause I
easy.
think most people are gonna come through, go out to the post road, and go one way or the other. I don't think.
Yeah, exiting right's not a problem. Plenty of sight
So I-
line to the left.
So I think we can protect protect
Yeah,
ourselves on that.
okay.
on that.
I'm just trying to talk it all out,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no, I think that's
type of
fair.
thing.
Yeah,
Um,
I think there's a lot of benefit to keeping the public hearing open. I think we should individually go drive the site, go
Yeah.
behind. You know, somebody talk to Jamie so that we're all on the same page. What's the best fire protection we can have in back? And then I agree with Kevin, your suggestion of unstripe, that the fire lane in front.
It's gonna cause people to kind of try to merge into one.
Yeah, I
So that they
yeah, I
can
think
do
it's
two-way
less confusing. I
Yeah.
mean,
Bless
I
you.
understand the
Bless you.
intent. The intent is good. You don't want people, parking there, but, I mean, the whole purpose of this model is to not have people park. People aren't parking,
No. Well,
it's a kiosk, for
Right.
want of a better description.
And there were a couple of other things that we wanted him to incorporate in the plan already, right? The irrigation,
Well, depending on how much the
If
square
it's-
footage is.
measure
if
it
it's
out.
required. What else? Were there other? So, yeah, I won't be here next meeting, but the first meeting in April is the meeting, is the hearing on the Plan of Conservation and Development, right?
It is.
So we may,
or we could do a special meeting, if he can notice it,
We have the 8th, I believe it's the 8th and the 22nd, we had the public workshop on the 2nd, April 2nd. Is that what you were asking?
I thought we had a meeting on April 4th for some reason.
No, that's a Friday,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Get with the
2nd is
program.
the special meeting, which is the
April
Wednesday.
2, right?
Yeah.
April 2nd,
That's at High Plains.
Actually,
April
April second is a Wednesday, isn't it?
is that a
It's
Wednesday?
April 1st.
So we'll have our regular meeting on April,
First.
Oh,
First.
April 1st, yeah,
Right.
what am I saying?
All right.
April 1st and the 15th.
Okay.
yes.
all right, so then we could
Set
put
it
this
for
on
that.
our agenda for April 1st, for our first meeting in April. Be 2 nights out in a row for us on zoning. Everybody's all right with that?
Pay is good.
Yeah, that's true. We get overtime for that, right?
The overtime.
All right, so why don't we do that? Why don't we leave the public hearing open? The applicant will have a chance to revise his plan based on our discussion.
We'll have Jack communicate.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Make sure we're all on the same page.
yeah. Okay, everybody agreeable on that?
Yep.
All right. Anything else?
If we're gonna go if we're gonna go on to the next item agenda, could we get a 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Quickie.
I'd be hard pressed to say no, since I went and did that myself. All
Okay.
right, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll take up our last agenda item, okay?
Yeah.
Last item on our agenda this evening is item number 6, and it's to consider enacting regulations for smoke shops, tobacco stores, and/or vape shops. And this is on the commission's own initiative to consider this regulation. Paul, would you
To-
open the public hearing by reading the legal notice, please?
I will. To appear one time on Wednesday, February 19th, 2025, and one time on Wednesday, February 26th, 2025, the Orange TPZC, Notice of Public Hearing. Notice is hereby given that on Tuesday, March 4, 2025, at 7 p.m. at the Orange Town Hall, 617 Orange Center Road, the Orange Town Plan and Zoning Commission will conduct a public hearing on the following: to consider enacting regulations for smoke shops, tobacco stores, and/or vape shops, submitted by submitted on the initiative of the Orange Plan and Zoning Commission to consider amending the Orange zoning regulations to regulate future smoke shops, tobacco stores, and/or vape shops. A copy of this notice has been filed with the Orange Town Clerk. Additional information is on file in Orange Zoning Department dated Orange, Connecticut, this 18th day of February, 2025.
All right, thank you, Paul. So our public hearing is open. As you know, as you recall, we voted in favor of a moratorium at a previous meeting whereby we agreed that for the next 6 months, I think it's 6 months, 6-month moratorium, we would not take an application for such a use in anywhere in any zoning district in the town. So now we want to have this public hearing to figure out what we ought to do in terms of either possibly banning this type of use, banning it in certain places in the town, regulating it in some way, or whatever. So let's start by asking for any public comment on the application or on the potential regulations.
Good evening, everybody. Chantal Bunnell, Bunnell.
I'm sorry,
Chantal Bunnell.
if you would spell your name, please.
Sure, it's Bunnell.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to go over a couple things. Try to get through it quickly. I know it's late. My name is Chantal Bunnell, and I'm the Youth Service and Prevention Coordinator for Orange. And so I'm tasked with by the town, for providing positive youth development and substance abuse, mental health prevention in Orange. So let me say thank you, first of all, for taking this stance on imposing the moratorium. At an annual, I'll tell you a little bit about how I got here. At an annual meeting for prevention back in September of 2024, I was informed that Milford was imposing the moratorium on vape shops. They were up to 22 at that point, and as you know, they imposed their moratorium and some zoning regulations. As the youth service coordinator, I became concerned for Orange in that it would start to have impact on our town and our youth that would have access to these shops. Most of the towns, including Orange, had seen an uptick in smoke and vape shops and had been working towards the issue with the state and their individual towns. Westport, Stanford, and Monroe, to name a few, were also trying to get ahead of the issue. And like our neighboring town in Milford, they imposed moratoriums. And this, as a result, I came to speak with the Board of Selectmen. When I presented to the Board of Selectmen at their November meeting, my goal was really to provide just some insight as to what was being sold in the vape shops, what was going around, what was going on around us in the other towns, and how towns were limiting vape shops, limiting access, that were negatively impacting the towns, and particularly in my situation, the youth. In addition, I indicated that there was a national health crisis among our teens in regards to vaping. Prevention agencies were trying to get a gauge on how to cope with this really fast-moving public health epidemic. And to be clear, I let the Board of Selectmen know that this was not something that we were trying to discuss cigar shops. This was smoke shops that you see neon signs on the post road for. There's some general facts that I just wanted to kind of put up there to understand, for everybody to understand where we were coming from. Back in the 80s and 90s, a Marlboro Red, as most people know, was like 15 milligrams of nicotine. Now the vapes are actually starting at 38 milligrams. So, and they go up from there. It's not like 38 is it. They go up. The other piece of it, some of the vapes, again, start at 590 equivalent cigarettes in like a disposable vape. So a lot of our youth are going through one of these on a weekend. That's 590 cigarettes would be the equivalent in one. The other piece that's really important, and again, there's tons of facts, but that out of the 15,000 different vapes, flavoring, everything on the market, only 34 are actually FDA approved. So a lot of these oils and coils and vapes that are being sold in these shops are really not regulated, but are being sold. So I'm here because, like my colleagues across the state, when we talk about prevention, we talk about what we can do like in our own community. And the most impactful strategies are environmental strategies, which means limiting access to youth in our community. So currently in Orange, there are 5 to 6 smoke vape shops. I think we got one more since I had 5 here, as you're aware of, and there's very little oversight or guidelines. However, some of the towns that I worked with used different methods to kind of figure out how they were gonna monitor these things. One of the methods that they used was the Department of Consumer Protection with liquor stores says for every one liquor store, you would have 2,500 citizens. So if we say Orange generally has 14,000 citizens, right, amount, we are at capacity for our vape shops if we use that formula. So some towns have done that.
How many do we have right now?
6.
We have
I think we have
6.
6.
Mhm. And this doesn't include gas stations where you can get it, and doesn't include some of the mini marts where you can buy these things. We're at capacity just with the shops. So why do we need any more is really what I'm proposing to you all today. And we're not naive to the fact that, you know, kids, if they want to access these, they're gonna access them. But again, it's an environmental strategy that helps to reduce access. I'm working, you know, really hard as a youth service prevention coordinator to address the issue. We've talked to legislators about tougher penalties for people that do sell to youth. We're working with the Orange Police Department and checks made by DEMIS as well. And your role in this is also paramount in limiting access. So just some questions to think about. You know, I know you all think about this all the time in your roles in zoning, but what image do we want to create on the Post Road and have our youth look at? Do we want to see another 10 smoke shops? I guarantee if we don't do anything, that will happen. It's happened in other communities. And what do we want our community priority to be? Are we worried about smoke shops or promoting health in our community for our entire community? And finally, of the smoke shops, from what my understanding is, most of them are not owned by Orange citizens. These are not people that help our little leagues. These are not people that support our schools. Their exposure and the things that they're selling in these shops, you know, they're not always legal products. So they're all things that we have to try to get ahead of. So let me say thank you for listening. Thank you for volunteering your time on the board, especially at 10:30 at night, because you guys get paid a whole heck of a lot. And I'm asking you in general, just to say no to having any more. You know, if we go back and we use those guidelines, you're at capacity. There is ways that people can access, you know, some of these other things. And we want to create a positive community where our youth thrive. And that's what Orange is about. I have a few letters I'd like to submit. The first is we have a Orange Youth Services Teen Representatives Group that they wrote a letter opposing any further vape shops. I'm not sure who to give that to. The other letter that I have is from the Director of Community Services, Stacy Johnson, who's here with me today, who also wants to submit a letter. And then I also have one from the Orange Police Department, from our 2 SROs that work with our kids, also in agreement with that. And just for your own sort of reading pleasure, I guess you will, we do have a list of everything. I gave this to the Board of Selectmen as well, what's being sold in these shops.
Okay.
And I'll give you that as well. But-
All right. Yeah, listen, these should be made a part of the record. And if you could make a copy, not right now, I mean, you know, email everybody a copy of those.
Absolutely.
This, I think we have,
Quite a pile.
Yeah, that was, I made a bunch of
this,
copies
make
for.
this part of the record,
Okay.
and then we'll pass out, yeah. There you go. Can you answer a few questions for us?
I can try.
Sure.
So,
It sounds like you would favor, not a, or
Prohibit.
We
well, no,
don't.
I don't know, not
Yeah.
enlarge it, I mean, would you be, you would be satisfied to leave it at 5 or 6 indefinitely? Or would you prefer to see the use banned? And, you know, as those other businesses move on, close up for whatever reason, not be replaced?
That would be ideal. Absolutely. I definitely don't think we need any more.
Right.
You know, if we wanna, if once those shops close up, that would be,
Because I see that, I see
Absolutely,
like that
yeah.
what Milford did
Yeah.
is, they prohibited that use in any district, any zoning district in town. But that doesn't mean, I mean, any existing
Right.
businesses can
They're
continue
grandfathered
as
in.
non-conforming uses
Correct.
indefinitely.
correct.
So, but, you know, the way I would read their regulation, you know, once those go out of business, somewhere down the road, they cannot be replaced
Correct.
with that same use.
Right.
Okay.
so for the benefit of the audience and older folk such as myself, basically, an e-cigarette's just a delivery vehicle for nicotine.
It's not just e-cigarettes, right?
Yeah, so again, if you look at that list, I mean, this is, the e-cigarettes are kind of the start. This is, it's really moved quite quickly. The vapes now are, you know, like this big and disposable. And so that's what I meant when I said, like, they'll go through one of those, like, on a weekend, it's 590, you know, equivalent to 590 cigarettes. They're much bigger, they're much larger, they're much more addictive.
But the point is to ingest nicotine.
Is there any-
Correct, and also now, some have cannabis in them as well, that people may or may not know about.
Okay.
But yes,
How does this affect our cannabis legal place over there on the Post Road? Does
so
it have-
that's, yeah, that's separate, the dispensaries are separate.
Okay.
I mean, you get,
I don't see how that would be the same use, but.
Right,
but
it's
we have to
different.
look
That's
at that.
well-defined, and this
Yes.
is well-defined.
you know, there's a tax, you get a tax benefit from that, it's quite different than these. Yeah, it's regulated, these, yeah, are not
Right.
regulated.
What do you, beside buying product, you can't, you can't hang around in a vape shop, can you? Or, I don't, you know,
Yeah, I mean, you could, I mean, I,
I mean, it's not meant to be like a bar.
right,
Or like a cigar lounge, it's not meant to be that.
it's not like a cigar lounge.
You buy your product and you basically hit the road.
Again, because they're not regulated, you know, they can kind of do what they wanna do.
And
So,
they do.
Chantel, do they have to get a state license?
Is it, I think they have to get a state license, but I'm not sure what exactly it is.
Okay.
And I know that the state of Connecticut is trying to catch up and work legislatively to address like the flavoring specifically. So all these vapes are flavored with caramel and vanilla and whatever. So Massachusetts banned all their flavors, so that they hope to see a reduction that way. Connecticut has not done that yet, but hope to do that in the future.
And the age is the same as the age where you could buy cigarettes, or?
Yes, you have to be 18.
And I guess then you wouldn't favor any regulations similar to package stores, where they can't be located within a certain number of feet of a church or a school or?
I mean, I think, again,
that type of-
I think you're, right now, we have capacity if you base it on that Department of Consumer Protection. Again, there's no guideline, so that was the closest that some towns have been able to sort of figure out a way to do that. I think Stamford was the town that did that first.
Seems like West Haven, if you looked at the regs that West Haven adopted, similar to what what you have with package stores.
Right, that's regulated.
Clearly opens up, many more coming in.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Right.
As
Well,
long as
under-
they're not near a school or within a certain number of feet of another vape shop. and so on.
Under 8-2 are Connecticut general statutes that govern zoning. The first line is the health, safety, and promote health, safety, and welfare of a community. So this applies, in my opinion,
Yeah.
to look into this issue. And
All right. Anything further?
No,
Is there anyone else? Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
please do.
Podium. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for staying so late. I'm Stacy Johnson. I'm the Director of Community Services. I do want to reference an act that was passed last year, Public Act 24-76. It is a very lengthy act, and I'm happy to forward that to all of you. There is specific reference in here, very general language that gives municipalities greater authority to shut down businesses that are causing a health and safety concern to the public. And this really relates a lot to cannabis as well. But it's a broader, what's the word I'm looking for?
Discretion.
It's too late.
Broader umbrella.
Broader umbrella, and also helps municipalities also battle some of these issues. This is an epidemic. You asked for facts. The facts are nicotine is addictive, and it's also devastating to brain development. If anything we've learned over the past number of years with brain development is your brain is not fully developed until age 26. 26.
that's good, I got some room to grow.
So you got.
This is fantastic.
So what is happening with the use
Too
of
late
these
for you.
products is nicotine has actually been showing to affect memory, attention, learning. There are significant implications. It increases anxiety and depression in youth. And we can go on and on, but I did want to mention that to you tonight, and thank you for your time. I won't take up any more of your time. And anything we can do or answer questions, please let us know.
Thank you. Do you know of other people that want to address the commission on the issue, or that would?
Board of Ed or
I mean, my
parents.
inclination would be to keep
Keep
the
it
public,
open, yeah, that's
public
what I was
hearing.
gonna recommend.
Yeah, keep it open for some period of time.
Sure, we can.
While we
can
entertain
also some of
other-
our
Because, then we
partners.
can
Build a
read the
record.
public act, read the materials, see if you have other folks that want to offer their opinion.
I mean,
Because it is late, so I
yeah,
think to
I
be
mean,
fair on the
ultimately,
topic.
if that's the direction we wanted to go, and we'd have to draft, an amendment to the regulations, and then ultimately vote on that. So we're not there yet.
Right.
But it would be helpful to build a record. So it looked like we did our homework,
Yeah.
Or you do.
Absolutely.
Huh?
Or they do. Yeah.
Well, somebody does their homework.
It's their job, sure.
Yeah, they're the experts on the topic. so.
So why don't we leave the public hearing open at this point, and we'll put it on our next agenda, I guess. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Have a
Thank you
good
very
night.
much,
Thank you
okay.
so much. Take care.
Put it on our agenda for the next meeting, or, and then we'll see what else we can learn about it. Yeah, have you all seen the regulations from West Haven and Milford?
Milford.
Yeah. All right. All right, then that, you're welcome. That concludes our agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
You do.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.